mass, 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 mass. I have unserver muted you.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, mass.
Excellent. How's it going?
I'm doing wonderfully. Can you speak up a bit?
Alaikum. Salam alaikum.
Hold on.
Salam
Okay.
alaikum.
I don't know what that means, but I've upped your volume.
Yeah. Alright, what's up?
I'm doing wonderfully, my friend. Here, wait. Let's talk for a little bit, okay? Are you a fan of Red Ice TV?
I don't really watch their videos, to be honest. Not a big fan.
Are you a fan of their politics?
I mean, sure, in a broad sense, I'm pro-European in general.
Well,
so
no.
I guess
by what met pro-European? Can we wait? For my sake, can we dispel with the euphemisms? You mean Nazi? Europe has been doing extraordinarily well under the globalist economic policies that it's been,
that's just not true. I can't believe you're shilling for capitalism right now.
Wait. One thing at a time.
Why are you shilling for capitalism?
I'm sorry?
Why are you shilling for capitalism right now?
I'm not shilling for capitalism. You do realize that under a Marxian analysis of the material progress of humanity, capitalism is a step forward, which must then be replaced with socialism. I'm not one of those idiots who believes capitalism does only bad.
I understand. I used to be a communist. So I just, because you said look at Europe today, and I say Europe today is not that great. If you look at the overall, life expectancy is slowly going down.
Yes, capitalism has issues.
So I'm going to give you a little basic statement to start off with. Mm-hmm. So number one, can we quickly talk about why you won't debate Eric Stryker real quickly?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
You said earlier that Stryker doesn't have that much of a following.
Well, wait. Let's go for the full context here, okay? Because I understand what you're about to say. So here's what happened with Eric Stryker. I was on Twitter one day, first posting as always, and somebody who said, you should debate Eric Stryker. I had no idea who this person was. Eric Stryker was linked in the person's tweet. So I responded with, I have no idea who this was. And Eric Stryker appeared, or I think I said something like, I have no idea who this was. They're probably an idiot. I probably made some inflammatory statement, but I legitimately had no idea who they were. They showed up and they were like, hey man, why we should talk sometime. Why can't we be civil? And I said something like, there's no reason to be civil with people like you. And from that point forward, they were gone in my mind because I don't care anymore. But after that, people have been treating it like wanted to debate Stryker, but then backed out because his giant brain was too much for me to handle, which is really weird because I've never said I wanted to debate him. But so that's the context. So we've led into that. So now make your statement, please.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite an odd position because you debate people like that daddy guy who was a conservative. You debate all the most basic bitch people ever. You don't debate someone
across the spectrum. I debated a Nazi.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying the main figures in the alt-right are people like Mike Enoch and Stryker. Stryker is very well known. He's quite well respected in our community, and he's willing to engage in good faith arguments with you.
Nazis by definition engage in bad faith arguments. I've seen some of his content. It's every bit as stupid and derivative as any other fascist content that I've seen in my entire life.
Could you give me an example? Please?
Yeah. So he's made the argument, for example, and I admit that I've seen very little of his content. He's made the argument that modern day the left are actually unwitting pawns of their echo sign capitalist overlords, because by supporting open borders, they are actually hurting the good white working class they are supposed to be representing. I'm very familiar with those types of Nazbol arguments, the Strasserite perspective on race relations. It's very stupid. But no, it's the same shit that I would hear from any run-of-the-mill YouTuber. I don't pretend to be special myself, I'm not an arbiter of lefty debate divinity or whatever. I don't know why people pretend he is. Everything I've seen from him has been basic as fuck.
I mean, the concept of, do you accept the fact that capitalists want open borders?
Yeah, sure. Capitalists also want clean running water and indoor plumbing because in the long run it boosts societal output. Just because a capitalist is in favor of something doesn't mean that I have to oppose it.
Okay, that's fair enough. So, for example, when people like Jeff Bezos or the Koch brothers say to the Republican Party, no, you will not have closed borders, you will not have this amount of immigration, you'll increase it, because they want the cheap labor. They want to undercut the amount of cost it has for Native American workers. There's no justification from a leftist perspective in the modern day context to have open borders unless you have Marxism right now.
Okay.
which you don't.
Well, no, that's not true. For one, there can be intermediary goals between class liberation and the future. For one, racial apartheid and racial discrimination are and always have been spooks that the ruling classes have used to break apart worker independence movements. This is well known. This is not like fancy pants Marxian literature. If you get the white man and the black man arguing with one another, you don't get them arguing with each other against the capitalist. In that respect, I would argue that you are actually the ones serving the aims of the capitalist, because when we could be working together to overthrow our oppressors, we are instead dealing with people like you, who are trying to essentially recreate the exact same hierarchy they perpetuate. You're just doing it in different terms. So that's point number one. Point number two is you're making some scraping noises on your mic.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Point number two is that the revolution must be international. There is no way for an isolationist country with no economic ties or cultural ties to the outside world to affect the rest of the world in the way such to affect an international revolution. And thirdly, the reason why I'm a Marxist is because I like things like egalitarianism, equal opportunities, and freedom. And I don't think those goals are served very well by keeping brown people out of the country. So that's sort of the interplay between open borders and leftism right now.
Okay, but in the current status quo, all those things you want to achieve cannot be achieved.
Yeah, they can.
Under a capitalist framework.
Oh, yeah, they can. We can get closer to racial equality. We can build cultural and economic ties with other countries. Yeah, absolutely, we can do these things under our current system.
Okay, but do you understand the way you're framing it? Sounds like you think you're outplaying the capitalists in their own game.
No. I don't think I'm doing that. I think that capitalism's agitations will bring them to a halt with or without open borders. I don't think that having open borders is going to perpetuate capitalism indefinitely. The systems which will bring about capitalism's downfall will continue to grind against one another with or without open borders. For one, we don't have open borders right now. We actually have a very strict immigration policy in the country that I live in, America. And in this country, in spite of its strict immigration policy, we are experiencing some pretty severe late stage capitalism. And in other countries that are dealing with an influx of migrants right now that have less stringent immigration policies, like say Germany, they are also dealing with the grinding of capitalism's agitations. So it seems to me that this is going to happen one way or another. I don't know why third positionists or Nosbos or Strasserites or whatever they like to call themselves try to pretend that hating brown people and keeping them out of the country is a necessary step to class liberation. Why not just say, we hate brown people and also we want class liberation? Why lie? Why juxtapose the two?
Okay, first of all, don't say things like "I hate brown people" because that's just a straw man and just you're creating.
Come on, all of you people, come on. I've seen the poll shit posts. I've seen the 8chan threads. You people don't go like, "Hey, listen, we only recognize there are cultural differences between people of different colors. We respect them and hope they get to live fruitful lives the rest of the place." Nah, fuck that. You post the didn't do nothing memes. You post the fucking racist green text. We know you do this. Why pretend you only academically disagree with the integration of these people?
No, this is just you're taking memes and making into literal.
Yes, memes belie. Yes, memes belie political values. That's why the memes that I consume, read, and produce are all very distinctly pro-leftist, pro-racial equality, pro-whatever. And the memes that you guys produce are identical to the sort of beliefs that a person who hates black people would produce. I don't.
So okay, hold on. If that's fair enough.
Why
so
lie? All right, nah.
No, it's not lying. Hold on. By your own logic, brown people, black people. So why don't we support the wars in Iraq? Why don't we support
because
all these wars?
Because you can disagree with them. Because you can dislike brown and black people and still be isolationist. What do you mean? That's another bad faith example.
No. You said we hate them. If you hate something, you want to destroy something.
No. That is not a juxtaposition I recognize. You can hate something, want to live with it. There were slave owners who hated black people who'd fuck their black mistresses. No, the relationship between cohabitating with something and hating something is very complicated. What is this like? How can we hate brown people? We didn't even like the war in Iraq. What the fuck are you talking about? You can do both of those things.
Because you're creating an image of that we just want to hurt these people or we want to see these people suffer. The fundamental part
I never said that.
Of our ideology is sovereignty, is national self-determination. None of us support any type of
hold on. Whoa. You just lied to me.
For any reason.
You don't care about national self-determination. This country has a ton of non-white people in it. If you believe that, then you would believe they have every bit as much a right to determine the future of this nation.
No, so hold on. So when it comes to national self-determination, we
Well, you
base
actually
the
mean
term of
race.
we base the term of a nation on the classical term
Yeah, right.
based
No, no,
upon
no, no, no,
people.
no, 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 no. See, this is what I mean by dishonesty.
Those
Nobody
are
over the
dishonest.
past century has used the term nation to refer to the racial characteristic of a
They
country.
have. Yeah,
Nope.
they have.
Nope. This only comes about from Nazis who want to muddy the waters by conflating two terms. The term nation refers to nation. National sovereignty means the United States of America and all of her citizens. You want white nationalist sovereignty. There is a difference. That is why that term exists. I'd like
Okay.
if you go back to the etymology 450 years ago, this one scholar used it so that outweighs all the people using nationality in common parlance for centuries
No,
in
that's not
political
true.
discourse.
Every single country, every single Western country. I live in Australia, for example. We had a white-only immigration policy until
This has
1965.
nothing to do with the term nationalism and how it's used in common parlance.
Then
I don't
hold
want to
on.
use your
The
fake
concept
words.
of America, the concept of Australia was deeply rooted in race.
Yes,
So
I
what you're
agree.
saying right
That
now is a
doesn't mean the
lie.
term nation or nationalism have an intrinsic racial component in common parlance.
So you don't think nationalism is racism?
I do, but not the same kind of racism as white nationalism. Those are two different kinds of racism.
The fuck is this?
Yes. Listen, I know you have your talking points that you've read in the forums. I'm not buying it, my dude. I've been in academia. I know how these words are used. Nobody uses terms like nationalism, national origin, or national sovereignty to refer to racialized characteristics unless you're dealing in Nazi circles. So no, I reject your fake words. Let's use the real ones.
Every single leftist complains about the concept of nationalism as inherently racist, exclusive,
yes, that does not necessarily
so
mean.
how does that contradict with what I'm saying?
Because nationalism generally refers racially to xenophobia, and nationalism as practiced in this country, regardless of its racial makeup, would still exclude brown or black people. That is a very different kind of racial exclusion than a deliberate effort to keep this country white by policy and by nature. Those are two very different things. Nationalism can be racist. White nationalism can be racist. They can be racist in different ways. This isn't difficult to get around.
Okay, fine. I'm not gonna die on this hill. This is kind of not that important.
Well, it is important because it's kind of the pardon me for using this. Pardon me for this reference. It reminds me very much of the Orwellian effort to overwrite language. Whenever I talk with Nazis, I never have any fucking idea what they're saying half the time. And the reason for that is because you guys are so buried in your own terminology, you forget that like all of it is built upon presuppositions that most people aren't going to buy. Like, when I mean national autonomy, I actually mean white people. Like, no one fucking buys this. Okay, just use the proper terms. We want a white nationalist state. We want to either kill or deport.
I'm not trying to hide from it. I'm not trying to hide from these things. I'm just trying to make it into a concept that you can't particularly frame in such a quote unquote outrageous way of saying we hate brown people.
It's white national. Just say white nationalism. We would be so much easier if you just say the terms.
Okay. I said from the very beginning, especially in the chat before, I'm pan-European nationalist, just like the pan-Arabs, just like the pan-Africanists, just like Zionism.
Well, yeah, the difference is Well, listen, I don't like pan-Arabs either. Okay, I don't care about any pan-nationalist movement. I don't.
Do you support the Kurdistan movement?
I'm sorry.
Do you support Kurdistan?
I support the efforts of a marginalized group to achieve political legitimacy. I do not like it when it's framed through a nationalist or ethnocentric lens. That is consistent with every single group of people on this planet.
I mean,
also to frame like Western Europe in the same political climate as the fucking Kurds is hysterical to me. Yeah, absolutely. That's the position white people are in globally right now.
No, because we're talking about ideology right now. We're talking about if the Kurds want their own nation state based upon the Kurdish identity, then why is that so different from that of Europeans?
I don't want the Kurds to have their own nation state based on their own identity. I want the Kurds to have political legitimacy with
Kurdishness.
Yeah. Yes, I don't like that. I don't like ethno-states.
Okay, but that's what all the leftists support right now.
Nope. We support this is the same reason why people are like, free Tibet. We support the political freedom and authenticity of marginalized groups. This is not the same thing as saying we support ethno-states. These are two wildly different things that Nazis like to conflate to try and make gotchas. I also don't like Israel's ethno-state, and if there was a two-state solution with Palestine and Israel, I wouldn't want the Palestinian state to be an ethno-state. I don't like ethno-states. I like people and I like freedom. That's what I'm here for. I'm all about that freedom.
Yeah, very, very libertarian of you.
Well, hold on. Yeah. Libertarianism was originally a left-leaning concept.
Yeah, I know, but
All right.
it's just
Okay.
it's a bit of a joke of an ideology. But okay,
Wait, left
um,
libertarianism is a joke of an ideology?
no, libertarianism.
Oh,
It's just
yes,
the whole
okay.
concept of my freedom. It's kind of it's a
Well,
bit
yeah,
laughable.
because their big issue is that they don't recognize that social coercion and pressures produced by capitalism and market inequalities threaten freedom. That's the joke there. They claim to like freedom, but they allow things like unchecked market discrimination to run rampant and restrict everyone's
I
freedom.
know the ANCAPs are insane. We both agree on that.
Yeah.
So let me get back to something we can talk about right now. So, for example, when it comes to countries like Venezuela,
Mhm.
who are constantly under threat from American imperialism, we would both agree that, no, under international law, we both agree that Venezuela has the right itself and foreign countries can't impose their will upon it, correct?
If you're going to try and draw a line between racial autonomy and national autonomy, I'm going to need you to get a really fucking big marker out because that's going to take a lot of ink. Yes, I support developing nations in their quest to not live under the constant threat of Western imperialism.
Okay, why should America respect any type of borders if you yourself support the whole concept of breaking down borders itself?
Wait, the open borders means the free movement of people. You think that means invading other countries?
No. It's not the same. No, because you don't believe the concept of sovereignty even exists.
Wait, yes, I did. Yes, people can be sovereign. I would like nation states to be as sovereign as is possible because nation states, at least with elected representatives, tend to, in theory, represent the will of their people. So I'm fine with that because national sovereignty, to an extent, can be an extension of individual sovereignty. But I would only support it insofar as it is juxtaposed with the alternative, which is rampant Western imperialism. This has nothing to do with my position on open borders.
Well, but what is sovereignty? Like
The
for a country to
ability
have
to act
sovereignty,
without
hold on,
coercion
hold
from
on.
other. All right.
For a country to have sovereignty, they have defined borders in which they reign over. That's why America can't come into their waters, they can't come to their land and say that, okay, well, we can do what we want now. Because no, this is their sovereignty, this is their land, this is their borders. It's clearly defined.
What does that have to do with resisting Western imperialism in Venezuela?
Because you're saying yourself, we both agree that America or any other country should respect different countries' borders and their sovereignty. And at the same time, you're saying we should not allow people, let's say, for example, Russia, force them or quote unquote, they should not be allowed to discriminate based upon race when it comes to allowing people of their sovereignty into their
Yes.
nation.
These are not contradictory positions in the slightest. Wait, do you want me to lead you through why they're not contradictory?
Well, hold on. Let me quickly just go through this again.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
we
no,
both
please.
agree. Okay, nations have a right to rule over their own people, and they can protect and rule.
Well, it's not about the nations to me, it's about the people themselves. Democratic
Okay, well, the
nations.
people. Well, for my view, the state is the will of the people.
Well,
It's
wait. Saudi Arabia's state is the will of its people? Nah, I don't think so. Ideally,
well,
democratic nations represent the will of their people. I would make that concession.
I'm talking about it in more of a. I'm talking about it in a philosophical.
Well, no. States have
Theological standpoint.
historically engaged in acts which are very detrimental to the will of their people and go against what's best for the people of their country. No, I don't think.
No. I'm not saying every single state is like that. I'm saying, in principle, in my worldview, as a fascist or national socialist, the state is the people, and the state
Yeah, I
represents the
can't,
people.
but I can't make any statement upon that presupposition because that presupposition is fucking brain dead. No, it's absolutely not the will of the people. The state is just an
What do you think the
apparatus of
state is
power
then?
that exists and controls what?
I think the state is.
The state is what? It's a political apparatus that holds power within a
Okay,
given geographic reason. It doesn't mean it's the fucking will of the people. What does that mean? I can
no,
describe what.
no.
Wait, well, hold on. I can describe what a state means using very empirical language. It is a form of governance with a monopoly on controlled violence, which uses through institutional force, implements a set of laws within a given region. It tends to have borders and blah blah blah. I can use these very strong descriptive language, and then you use
Exactly.
a very wishy-washy term like will of the people. I don't know
No,
what
no,
that
hold on. Okay,
means.
okay, fine, fair enough. What I'm trying to say is, I agree that definition you gave right there is 100% correct. Now, we use that tool, that system, in order to carry out the interests and the quote unquote democratic the majority of the people's wishes within the state, correct?
That would, I mean, no state actually does this, but that would be the ideal democratic
Of
state.
course not. I'm not disagreeing with you on that one. Well, maybe apart from, like, let's say Venezuela to a certain degree, or like Iran or something like that. But yeah, I mean, in theory, we both agree on this.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. And as we both realize, I don't see any fascist government out there, so
Well, no.
I'm not supporting any quote unquote any other
I would
country
argue
out
the
there.
American government is pretty fascistic, and no.
Okay, really, you really think so?
Yeah.
Can we talk about that?
Sure, but
What do
we
you think
didn't even
fascism is,
we didn't
first of
even
all?
we didn't even finish this point, which is where you said that because I support national sovereignty, I can't support open borders or something.
Well, yeah, what I'm saying is, why should a country who's sovereign not be able to arbitrarily quote unquote discriminate against the people who come into their country?
Because the reason why I like sovereignty is because I think it serves other larger axiomatic goals, like maximizing human well-being, freedom, introspection, that sort of thing. So if I like national sovereignty when it's resisting Western imperialism, but I don't like national sovereignty when it's being used to discriminate against a large swath of its population or prevent people of a particular ethnicity from coming into their borders. For me, national sovereignty is just an end to a larger goal, which is to maximize well-being. I am 100% in favor of international action to address like humanitarian crises in authoritarian nations. Like as a concept, I am 100% okay with that. I would never say like, oh yeah, North Korea is totally fine with its detention camps and death camps and police patrols because it's national sovereignty. I would never make that argument.
I mean, that's why we have things like international law, and if people violate international law, then we can pressure them. It's not the same thing as saying, I disagree with you ideologically, and therefore we can attack you or we can impose sanctions on you.
I never said well, I think that sanctions can be valid in some instances, as can attacks if a nation poses a direct threat to another. What does this have to do with open borders?
Well, the whole point of, okay, let me put it this way. Let's say a group of people, let's go back to 1930s Germany, and the vast majority of Germans prefer to have Hitler as their leader and prefer to discriminate based upon race. Situation. Would you forcefully make them take in Africans or Middle Eastern people?
Well, no. In that case, I would bomb the country to bits and build them up again. So this time,
you're an imperialist. Then you're an imperialist.
Well, yeah. If imperialism means stopping fascists from conquering the world and like genociding Jewish people,
the world.
Well, hold on. Wait. Hold on. If imperialism means stopping fascists from taking over the world and genociding their own people, yes. I am that imperialist.
I agree with you because those things didn't happen, so that's fine.
Well, wait. Oh no. Wait, are you gonna Holocaust denial me?
Don't worry about it. I'm not talking about the whole. First of all,
no. You can't say some dumbass shit like that. Yes, Nazi Germany posed a very severe threat to the national autonomy of his neighboring nations. And yes, what happened to the Romani and Jews and gays and what have you, unquestionably, under every definition ever used of the term genocide, constitutes one. So yes, I am A-okay. Hold on. So yes. So in that instance, when a nation poses the greatest threat we have ever seen to the autonomy of its neighbors and to its domestic population within the past century, yes, I would then say it is okay to do interventionalism. That's the line right there.
Vaush, hold on, dude. Specific question. I said in the 1930s. The Holocaust started happening in 1941. We both agree with this. This is mainstream history, correct?
No. That is not true. The exclusionary policies which led into the Holocaust also constituted genocide. I said a genocide was taking place in the 30s, not the Holocaust.
What the fuck is a genocide? Do you know what genocide means?
Do you want to Google what a genocide means?
Yeah, just Google genocide.
Yeah, please, because the forced deportation, the burning of businesses, the random assassination of political leaders with the deliberate intent to remove from power an ethnic group. Yes, that fits the definition of genocide.
That's ethnic cleansing. It's a difference.
Okay. Let's do it together, my friend. If this is do you really want to die on this hill?
Yes, when it comes to genocide and ethnic cleansing, there is a
Deliberate
difference.
killing of large group of people, especially those of a particular ethnic group or nation. So I would
Exactly.
argue that under the Nazi purview, Judaism constitutes an ethnic group as much as it does a religion. I mean, after
You
all,
both agree with
when you
that?
all right, so when you post your poll memes and say, "Hey, look, everyone here is Jewish. Look how they control the world," you're usually talking about people who are ethnically Jewish, not people who are religiously Jewish. Most of these people don't really give a fuck about Judaism. It's just easy to
That's
call
not
them
entirely
Jewish.
true.
No, it is. I've seen the fucking poll threads, my dude. You don't need to lie to me. It's okay. You don't. It's not the religious thing. It's the ethnic thing. So an
No,
ethnic
no, no.
group.
I said no to the fact that you said most Jews don't care about religions at all.
No, I said that
That's
most of the Jews that are on those fucking poll threads don't care. Most of them are just hyper wealthy capitalists who are white passing and act as white people in every respect. And then like people realize that like 6 generations ago Heidelberg was their like maiden name, so then they like it's really fucking dumb. It's all conspiracy theory. But if we want to focus on the
that's
term,
very cute. Let's get back to the original thing.
yes, if
So
we want to
let's
go in the
talk
term
genocide.
genocide, yes, I would argue that everything the Jews were doing, I'm not Jews, sorry, that the Nazis were doing up to the Holocaust also constituted a genocide. They just went, I'm sorry, pardon the terminology, sicko mode on those Jews there, and then they made it a double genocide, which is worse than a regular genocide.
Okay, so can you I'm sorry, can you give me a link or some type of citation of a systematic, deliberate killing of the Jewish people within Germany in the 1930s?
Have you heard of the Night of the Long Knives?
Night of Long Knives was when Nazis killed Nazis, idiot. What the
Wait,
fuck?
wait. Do you want to go? How about we do a little experiment together? Let's Google Night of the Long Knives and find out what it was all about. Let's do it together, okay?
Yeah,
I love
let's
it.
do it together,
We're
bro.
like 6 tiers of your stupidity deep. We were gonna talk about because we were gonna talk about what was the thing you wanted? Whether or not America. Well, hold on. I was making a point. Please be civil. We were going to talk about whether or not America was fascist, and then you got hung up on like Nazi Germany, and then you got hung up on the definition of genocide, and now we're arguing whether or not the Night of the Long Knives involved the targeting of Jewish people. Like,
Yeah,
okay, let's do
Google
it. Night of the Long Knives. Let's learn, okay?
Let's learn.
Wikipedia,
Teach me.
a famously. I'm sorry?
Let's go.
Okay. So do we just want to read it together?
Let's read it together.
Yeah. Okay. So the Night of the Long Knives did constitute a substantial like intra-Nazi purge. That's undoubtable. The Strasserist faction got dabbed on really hard.
Mainly Rome. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Who led the SA?
I'm sorry.
The person who led the SA, the brown shirts, Rome, he was the one who was mainly killed, and those people were mainly targeted in the Night of Long Knives.
Yeah, hold on. Wait, yes?
People are saying you're confusing Crystal Night with Night of the Long Night.
Am I confusing Crystal Knock with the Night of the Long Knives?
I was waiting for you to realize.
I don't know enough, but people are saying that.
No, wait, you got me. All right.
I gotcha.
Now you got me. You got me. I got him confused. All right. So you can take the W on that one. Nice meme. However, we can take one step back. Kristallnacht also happened in the 1930s. That was also state perpetuated violence against a particular ethnic group with the specific intention of reducing their social power, killing them, obliterating their businesses, and later led to deportations and mass murder. I would say then that Kristallnacht unquestionably constituted the beginning stages of a genocide against the Jewish people.
Okay, I agree with you. It's a part of the longer story, but it was not a genocide. No one was massively killing all these Jewish people.
Well, genocides don't usually begin with, like, we don't say a genocide begins when we start digging the first mass graves. Usually a genocide is part of a... No. Usually a genocide... And by the way, this is hysterical from the people who unironically argue that whites are being genocided right now because, like, there are black people on TV and white women sleep with them. Well, so the fact that you're arguing for this stringent of a definition, like, oh, that wasn't a genocide, that was just state-enforced violence against a particular ethnic group with the specific purpose of, like, removing them from society. That's not a genocide. By the way, have you looked at the Gillette ad? Did you see the black guys in there? Like,
I'm not arguing about those things. Don't bring other people's arguments.
No, but the Nazi sphere in general argues about those things. Night of Broken Black Crystal. Nice meme.
All good. Okay. Anyway, so
So wait, what is
I mean,
German for Night of the Long Knives? Wouldn't it? It'd be blank Nacht.
Nacht,
Dummnacht?
Kristallnacht.
Weißt du
Yeah,
Nacht?
NACHT.
Okay, wait, hold on. Night of the Long Night. I just want to know how to pronounce it in the future. Nacht der langen Messer, the Rome Purge, operating. Oh yeah, I got it. We're here now. Good
Okay.
meme. So anyway, yes, this is a genocide. Yes, I'm totally fine with violating the national sovereignty of Germany in this instance. Do we want to talk about how America is fascist?
Jesus fucking Christ. All right, fine. Let's just go to American, quote unquote, fascism. So, can you quickly define fascism for me?
I can't do it quickly. It's a pretty confused mess of an ideology, but I can try my best. So,
You want me to define it for you?
no, fascists are the worst at defining their own ideology. Oh, fascism is about free association of a pan-European. No. Fascism is a mode of political governance, which is defined typically by extreme right-wing nationalism, traditional gender roles, xenophobia, very often meant to supplant a particular racial hierarchy. It usually does so while reinforcing a hyper-militaristic or if not that, isolationist state, one in which the only engagement with other nations is through violence. And very often, the ways in which fascism is promoted is through a deliberate policy of state promoted heroism and deliberate anti-intellectualism, the deliberate irrationality of posing one's enemies as simultaneously massive and unconquerable and also very weak and easy to defeat. These are like characteristics of fascism. There isn't like a singular definition for fascism because it's mostly just brainworms that people tried to describe after the fact. It's not like leftism.
Not really.
It's not like leftism where like really smart people wrote ideas down and people tried to learn from them.
Yeah, this is very nice of you, fanning your balls right now, but just hold on.
My balls get sweaty, dude. What do you want?
Yeah, fair. Yeah, that's right. I'm sure it gets hot there.
Yes, I'm a hairy dude, and I'm wearing some really comfy cotton shorts in my warm apartment, okay? I'm doing my best. Don't listen, what happens between me and my sweaty balls is up to me and my sweaty balls.
You're right, we shouldn't go down that path. I don't think I like that very much anyways.
Wait, you're not into sweaty balls? You're not a homophobe, are you?
Oh, never. How should I ever discriminate against someone's perversion?
Whoa! All right, no, I'm kidding. I knew you would say that. We don't need to pretend I'm outraged. All right, wait, what is the...
So,
yeah.
Okay, so for my concept of fascism, it's fundamentally an anti-materialistic worldview of anti-communism and anti-capitalist, which are fundamentally far more similar together than you might think.
Well, no. This is pretty dumb. Wait, are you a Strasserist or are you like a proper fascist? You're a proper fascist, right?
Well, the Strasser isn't that different. For example, have you read the 25 Points of National Socialism?
Of course I haven't. Why would I listen to a National Socialist tell me what National Socialism is? You guys lie like constantly.
What are you talking about? It's like saying if I read Marx, why should I read Marx?
Every single time I have watched Nazi content or argued with a Nazi, they have lied to my face. Every other sentence.
I think the actual 25 Points of National Socialism, which the Nazi Party actually wrote.
Yeah, they lie all the time. They call themselves National Socialists. The lie is baked into the terminology they use to appeal to the working class.
Yeah, they were anti-capitalist.
Yeah, yes, but not socialists.
I mean, your term of socialism is different from the Nazi term.
Wait, what term? Wait. They like consolidated corporate power into the state and supported private property. What type of socialism did the National Socialists support?
Okay, first of all, the whole concept of private property is not the same as we have it today.
I'm going to kill myself. Wait, what is your position? Because you say you're a fascist and then you say you're anti-communist, but earlier you said that like you said some like positive statements about Stryker, who's a third positionist, which means that he's a...
He's third positionism, dude. What are you talking about? Have you read Mussolini's work at all? Do you know what happened under the Social Republic?
Can you just make your point? I don't know. There are like a million Nazi movies.
Okay, very simple, all right? From a fascist perspective, from a third positionist perspective, whatever you want to call it, it is an anti-materialistic worldview.
No, they're different things. Wait, third positionists are so... Wait, pardon me if I'm wrong. Aren't third positionists typically Strasserites?
Strasser is no different when it comes to his economic policies than that of Hitler. Like, fascism...
Then in what way are they different?
I'm different. There's no difference between Strasser...
Then why'd Hitler have the Strasserites killed?
It was all personal beef. I swear to God, if you look at any of the actual works or notebooks,
Yeah, it
or
was
the
personal beef because the Strasserites were very critical of how the Nazi Party had co-opted their socialist rhetoric and gone in a capitalist direction. That's why they had personal
no,
beef.
it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was. What the fuck?
No, it wasn't. You want
Wait,
to
why
listen
don't?
to it?
Okay, listen.
I mean, honestly,
Instead of deliberately misunderstanding history in front of me, why don't you just tell me what your beliefs are, and then we can pick at that.
Okay, fine. I'll just give my beliefs. Okay, I think capitalism is shit. I believe that people should respect each other's national sovereignty, and I also think that nations.
Wait, by national sovereignty, do you mean real national
Okay,
sovereignty?
I'm explaining. I'm explaining.
Okay.
Nation itself is based upon a common heritage, a common ethnic group, etc. Like the classical term of what a nation is. So this is my principles of for anti-capitalism, anti-materialism, more of a spiritualistic worldview, and more of a tribalistic worldview of our land. This is my nation, and okay, we can deal with each other on an international
really
level.
Fucking loaded emotional language. When I talk about my like values or my political positions, I can usually do it in really strong empirical terms. My land and my language. Like what the fuck? What? Who's your land? You don't. What? Wait. What do you own? Are you like the Catholic Church? Do you own a bunch of land?
You don't believe in such things like native peoples? You don't think Native Americans have some type of spiritual tie to the land of America?
I don't give a fuck about the spirit. What? No, I don't give a fuck about their spiritual tie to this country. I give a fuck about their rights, their human rights, their ability to live free and dignified lives in the space that was theirs. I don't give a fuck about intrinsic. No, what?
Okay, but would you deny that Native Americans do have somewhat of more of a claim to their native land, which they were kicked out of and displaced from? Like that's the whole Palestinian argument.
Well, the Palestinian genocide is happening right now. The Native American genocide stopped like a century and a half ago, and since then we've just been strangling them to death. I don't know, it's really complicated. There are some leftists who think that natives should be able to like reclaim the continent and white people should go back to Europe. I don't really like that. That's basically just ethno-states but woke. I'm not here for that shit. At the same time, the current system we have where they get to have their own like reservations that are absolutely fucking starved of any economic like opportunities, that's pretty fucking bad. I don't know, it's really complicated. I'm generally against ethno-states though. That's probably my hardest leaning.
Right, okay, so again, if I give you an example of, let's say, from my worldview, if I was able to create a nation and it was recognized by the UN, and we create a policy of an immigration policy of only European peoples.
Yes, that would be bad.
I think, would you invade my country or bomb me?
I wouldn't invade. No, I wouldn't invade your country if you had like racist immigration policies. What I would do is probably like incentivize some sort of social, political, or economic pressure against you in a way that would coerce you into.
You would subvert my nation. You would subvert me.
Yes, because national sovereignty only is important to me insofar that it serves like the betterment of humanity, and I don't think that it does in that instance. It's a tool to an end.
Very interesting. So, I mean, this is just fundamental disagreements where...
Yeah, because like, I don't serve nations. What? I don't care if... Nations are a concept we invented. It's a tool we built to make lives easier for ourselves. I don't care about them intrinsically. If a nation has no one living in it, what purpose does it serve? The nation isn't important. The people living within it are. And so are the people living out of it. I don't care any more about an American citizen than I do about a Somali refugee. All of them are people. All of them, in my mind, are deserving of the same fundamental rights. I have no idea why I should respect this ephemeral national sovereignty if it hurts people. That's why, like, why would I be here for it?
I mean, do you deny the concept of tribalism or of in-group preferences?
Yeah, in-group preferences and tribalism exist. That doesn't mean that I think they should drive our fucking foreign policy. Like, lots of things exist. People rape and murder each other. Should we, like, make rape and murder illegal?
You have to give a false equivalency right there, because...
Wait,
I don't know how you can compare.
I missed the first couple sentences.
I think that's a false comparison of comparing rape to tribalism or...
No, they're incredibly comparable. So in the case of rape, we, in like a primal sense, you know, all we want to do, like, I'm talking about people with penis, like guys, you know, we want to get our fucking nut off, you know. There was probably a lot of rape back in the pre-modern era because, like, fuck it, you know, we're big, we're strong, you know, unga bunga, one pussy. We like club people over the head and rape them, like, whatever, you know, good. Animals do it all the time, okay? Now, society functions better when people don't do that. People get to be happier, so we outlaw it. Tribalism means that people people typically have in-group preferences for those they grew up with, or for those who speak their language, or share their culture, share the food, or religious identity, whatever. Tribalism exists. However, when we make tribalism a policy preference, that typically has really bad outcomes that lead to things like racism, or apartheid, or segregation, or discriminatory immigration policies, or even genocide. So I think that for the betterment of mankind, much like rape, we should probably do our best to disincentivize legally the institutional forms of tribalism that cause havoc on the world today.
Okay, so for what I'm going to argue with you right now is, okay, if that's your position, if you're so vehemently against these things, maybe we should go fight the people who are the most tribalistic and most have the greatest
no, that's tribalism.
in-group preference.
Wait. For one, just so you know, you're those guys. Like, you're up there. No. You're up there. You're up there with Zionists and like with pan-Arabic nationalists. Like, in terms of like promoting in-group preference and tribalism, you're up there. And what's convenient is you're close.
But we don't have power.
Huh?
But we don't have power.
No, I would say that white nationalism has quite a bit of power in the Western world in this day and age.
Which government do we run?
I didn't say you ran a government. That white nationalist tendencies just have a lot of prominence in the country. And look at America's history with immigration. Look at how we demonize non-white people who come into this country. Look at the recent Trump rally where they said, send her back about a fucking immigrant elected lady. Okay? Yeah, white nationalism has its root in this country. They're a problem. We'll deal with them. Also, we do deal with tribalistic attitudes in other places. That's why I'm an anti-Zionist. That's why I'm very much against Japan's immigration policies. I can be against all of these things. I just focus on the issues that are local to me, that are experienced by people with a common language so that I can speak to and about these people without needing a translator, and that operate within an area that I can personally change, which is the United States of America. I have a problem with like how Saudi Arabia treats its citizens as well, but I'm not going to move to Saudi Arabia, learn Arabic, and then like do a deep state like journalist expose under threat of death. Like, no, fuck that. I live in America.
That's fine. Okay, so let's stick to America, all right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about racist groups or very tribalistic in-group preferences or Zionist organizations, when we look at things such as the ADL or the World Zionist Congress or AIPAC or any of these organizations that have drastic influence and massive control over the American society, specifically the internet, if you want to look at the ADL, which literally has been working with YouTube and Google to help their algorithms. Engage in quote-unquote anti-racism, which you always talk about, or nationalism. So why don't you spend your time, instead of attacking Nazis who don't have any institutional power like the ADL does?
Wait, this is a bad faith argument at its definition. This is literally like, hey, we're really bad, but they're really bad, and maybe they're worse. No. For one, Zionism, while it is a big threat, mostly to Jewish people, Zionism does not pose the same existential threat to the safety of the world that white supremacy and white nationalism does. For two, I don't have to justify why the issues I choose to deal with are the ones that are most pressing at the moment. And to quote Patrick Stewart, opposing the extinction of the beluga whale does not mean one supports the extinction of like the African gray seal. You know, you can deal with one issue, that can be your focus. For three, I deal with Zionism. I have multiple videos on my channel talking about it. I got banned off Twitch for arguing against Zionism.
Quite interesting. You can talk as much shit as much as you want about Nazis, but you can't do the same thing for Zionists. Very interesting, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it is. Wait, why are you phrasing like that? That it's so surprising. Of course it is. Because when I talk shit about Zionists and Israel, it can often sound like the rhetoric you guys engage in, and Twitch cares about you guys. So, but when I do against, hold on. But when I do anti-Nazi rhetoric, there aren't any like secret, like massively powerful black nationalist groups that do anti-white rhetoric to destroy. Like there aren't like countries that are like being maintained by cabinet members with black supremacy. So I'm not evoking the language of like black supremacy or whatever. But when I criticize Israel, sometimes I, by necessity, will use terminology that is similar to that of Nazis. I wish you guys would stop it so that I could make criticisms of Israel without coming off like, you know, Nazi-ish. That'd be nice.
Well, the fact that you have to sound like a Nazi to criticize Israel, doesn't that kind of shine a light on the whole situation?
On you guys, yes, because you dog whistle constantly, and you'll talk all the time about the plight of the Palestinian people and how AIPAC and such control the... These are real problems, yeah, that I care about. But you don't, like, that's not really what you're here for. You're about the Jewish question. You're about how they control, through the media and politics, they promote degeneracy and open border. Well, I know you think it's a fact. It's literally, but come on. The JQ, listen, there was a video I was going to do later in the stream talking about the JQ. It's really dumb. Can we please just focus on actual like empirical facts? So,
okay.
The Jews have a disproportional amount of political control. So do men, so do white people, so do straight people, so do cis people. There are lots of demographics in this country that have a disproportionate amount of political and social power. And I don't like that. I don't like any of it. So I will fight against all of it. But yes, if you guys could stop making like Jewish question memes and stuff, it would make it a lot easier for me to criticize Israel without coming off like an anti-Semite. I would really appreciate it if you would stop. It would actually, unironically, make my life so much easier. And I would do more anti-Zionist content way the fuck more often if that was the case. Because then I wouldn't have to worry about people like stumbling across one of my videos for the first time, and the first thing they see is me shitting on Israel, and they're like, oh yeah, like those Nazis, and then they dip. Because you guys do that all the time. So if we could like make this a left-leaning thing, that'd be cool.
Well, I mean, anti-Zionism, especially on college campuses, is a left-wing thing. But they still get targeted by, literally Mossad and all these other groups. So I don't think me, quote-unquote, Nazis stop talking about Zionism or the Jewish question is going to do much.
No. This is why there's been so much hypersensitivity about anti-Semitism over the past couple of years. It's because
it hasn't. It's because Jews are just tricking you idiots.
Right, I know. So yeah, so all the obvious evidence of the conflation of anti-Zionist talk with anti-Semitic talk, none of that is that. It's actually because the hyper-powerful Jewish lobby is controlling discourse.
They've admitted it countless of times.
Yes, powerful groups of people will work in their own interests. Yes.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying they've literally, the whole propaganda of conflating the two is deliberate.
And the United States government, yes, I know. That's why I hate Netanyahu. Because he's a fucking dipshit. He's a fucking clown. And I don't like Zionists because they conflate the two because it serves their personal interests. Yes, I agree. Yes, Zionists will very often muddy the waters between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism because it makes it easier to deflect criticism. Well, no, it does. Because your existence justifies that. As long as you people continue to promote the Jewish question, they have a reason, they have an excuse to do that because you people actually exist. If you all would fuck off and die, it would be so much easier for me to go and look around and say, hey, there's no actual anti-Semitism here. It's just anti-Zionism. What the fuck is up with you guys? What's up, AIPAC? What's up, Israel? It'd be so much easier for me to do that if it weren't for the fact that every time I go on Twitter, every time I go on YouTube, my fucking notification feed is saturated with Nazis. If you guys didn't exist, my job would be easier, and I could work against Zionist interests without the conflation between me and your degenerate ideology. But because you exist, they now have an excuse to make me tiptoe, and I also don't want you to exist.
I got you. So can you please explain to me why the college campuses issue with regards to pro-Palestinian rights is still regarded the same issue when you have zero Nazis protesting with those people?
Because I literally already mentioned this.
I
I directly mentioned this. Zionists will deliberately muddy the waters between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism in an effort to consolidate political power. I already said that, yes.
If you have no fucking Nazis in college campuses protesting, how can you possibly try to justify...
Because there are Nazis in the world? Because they exist? Because
anti-Semitism...
Wait, this is so stupid. You're literally I'm like explaining to you like, yes, it's a shady tactic used by Zionists, but they're able to do it easier because of people like you. And you're like, well, I don't see any Nazis in the college campus protests that represent a small portion of the broader Zionist movement. So how could they possibly be motivated by that? Dude, come on. Be real.
I'm saying,
can we be real? Can we not cringe post right in front of my face? Can you get your cringe out of my fucking line of view?
This is just you playing into their game of allowing.
I know, yeah, I know. Not being a Nazi means that you play into the game of the global Zog, the transnational coastal elites with the little echo signs around them that
you got the dog whistles real good.
Well, but that's what you said. Just Jewish question. Yeah. No, I'd like to hear, pardon me for bragging. I'd like to think I'm pretty politically aware. Like, I know that fucking Israel does some fucked up shit in terms of their astroturfing American politics, and I oppose that. And I oppose you guys probably way more vehemently because you pose a much greater existential threat to the world. But yeah, if you didn't exist, I could deal with them easier. So I'm just saying, like, maybe Maybe we share the same goal, the liberation of the Palestinian people. If you could just
That's it.
stop being a Nazi, then I could work more easily to dealing with Israel.
One quick point. Quick point. So, with regard to the Palestinian people, the first person who actually supported the Palestinian people was Hitler, and it was the Soviet Union who supported the creation of Israel.
Okay, I don't.
So
care.
I don't think
even if that's true, I don't care. I care about my morals and how they're being affected now. Yeah, I know. Hitler originally tried to get all the other countries to accept the Jews. It was only after they turned them down that he started killing them. Well, he was killing them beforehand, but that's when like the major fucking operations began. Yeah, I'm aware.
Killing 10 Jews doesn't really matter anyway.
It wasn't. Wait, do you think that Kristallnacht and all of the violence prior to the implementation of the final solution was 10 Jews? Do you want to like?
Dude, I mean, I don't really care about what 10.
Right, no. So you don't care. So don't say 10. Just say a number of Jewish people less than were killed later or something. I don't really care. I care about my morals and how they're being imposed and affected now. I don't really care who supported who historically.
But aren't you the person who always talks about you're a consequentialist? That you don't really care that much about like.
What do I support that has negative consequences? How am I betraying my moral framework?
If you're saying you don't care about, quote unquote, Hitler supporting Palestinians and the Soviet Union supporting the establishment of Israel, then because you framed it in a way that says that's against my
you're
moral.
right. I'm pro-Palestinian rights. That means that since I'm not pro-Hitler, I have betrayed the Palestinian people. Nice meme. You got him.
No, I'm saying that's a fact. That's from a historical context.
Yeah, sure. Yes,
correct.
I know, and it would only be a good gotcha if you unironically believe that I would like bite this bullet and say, yes, I now support Hitler because as a consequentialist, his support would have led to the creation of Palestine, like a Palestinian state. Like, okay, wait, hold on one second. I'm being flagged down. Wait, what?
What does civic nationalism mean?
Civic nationalism is what people actually mean when they say nationalism and aren't being Nazis. Civic nationalism is just like nationalism in favor of the laws and culture of the place in which you live.
Yeah, that's always racist, though. That's always like white nationalists, though. Like inherently.
Hold on, I don't. Wait, what?
I think you've talked to Helbits before, right?
Helbits, yeah.
Were they a Nazi?
I don't remember. Everyone's a Nazi these days. Everyone's a Nazi but me.
Civic nationalist, but that doesn't mean anything.
Well, they say civic nationalists. They're probably racist anyway, but it doesn't.
No, you've talked to them before.
I can talk to them.
You
Wait.
have 2 new chuds.
Okay, excellent. Wait, can you hold on just a second? I need to pee.
No worries.
Okay. If you listen, if you support the white man, you gotta support me draining my balls right now. Okay, hold on.
100%, bro. Go for it.
All right.
By the way,
Quick.
so we have 3 people lined up in voice screen users. One is Extreme Dad. He has to leave now, he said. He'll be back around 12:30. Okay. There's Helbits, who you've talked to already. I think you should prioritize negotiators. They seem like the biggest dumbass.
Gotcha.
And they're a fasci apologist. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Hello?
Yo, can you hear me?
Yes. Beautiful.
All right, great.
All right. So wait,
Very
what
nice.
the fuck were we talking about? Oh yeah, okay. So this is like saying that I should have, because I support vegan ethics, that I should have supported Hitler because he was a vegetarian and not Stalin because Stalin was like a meat eater or whatever. I don't think
You said it was morally against it. You said you were morally against it.
Morally against what?
Well, when I brought up the issue of the historical context of the Palestinians, you said, okay, that's fine, but from a moral perspective, I'm against it.
No, I'm not entirely sure what you mean. I'm morally against supporting Adolf Hitler because he liked the Palestinian state. I don't think that's a good enough reason.
I mean,
like that. I think that fits within my consequentialist worldview. Like, if we're looking at the consequences of someone's actions, I don't think that supporting a Palestinian state like unteeters the Adolf Hitler like scale. You know, I feel like the scale's still pretty tipped. towards going to hell. So
Oh, going to hell. Interesting.
I'm not religious. It's a euphemism.
Yeah, no, I'm joking. Just pulling your leg.
Right.
So is there anything else specifically you want to talk about from a historical perspective? Because I feel like from a World War II or a modern day context, that the events of World War II have been deliberately led from a leftist perspective. So when you want to talk about
I mean, if you want to jerk off about like how the world would be if Hitler won, like, is that
no. So for when you talked about earlier about how Hitler was a crazy person who wanted to take over the world,
no, I don't think he's whoa. I never said he was crazy. I think he suffered from like some mental illness later in his life. He was under a lot of stress, but I don't think that his evil was a product of him being crazy.
Okay, fine. Don't worry about the crazy then. Yeah, so when you talked about Hitler wanted to take over the world or invading every country he could for the sake of conquering.
Never said that either. That is
historically, what was your perspective on Hitler going into Poland or like Czechoslovakia or
the
France?
goal was Lebensraum, right? His goal was to unite the Aryan people under a single banner into a nation that would represent their interests above the interests of the degenerates, the blacks, the browns, the Jews, and what have you, so they could live free of independently of foreign influence and stuff. That was what he said.
So, well, first of all, the word Aryan means European, so that's not correct. He never used the word Aryan in that regard, so it was actually Germanic.
Germanic. Yeah, but okay, well, yeah, Germanic. But didn't he say, and you have to correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't go about reading like Nazi speeches, but didn't he also say that like the Anglo whites were like oppressed by their Zog masters and that he would be willing to accept, like, he didn't want to genocide all the fucking Anglos and French, did he?
Well, first of all, Anglo-Saxons are Germanic peoples, and that's why he never wanted a war with England. But the word Aryan means Indo-European, and that includes Slavic people and pretty much all other European peoples. So it was based upon Germanic nationalism, which German peoples were displaced after World War One. Everything Hitler did was more legal.
Hitler fucking hate the Slavs?
There's plenty of Slavic SS divisions. Like myself, I'm a Slav.
And well, in World War II, America had like black divisions in their army. That doesn't mean they fucking hate
they were segregated. They were discriminated against. There was no discrimination within the SS whatsoever.
Possibly because you had to pass a really strict ideological bar to make it there. Also, the SS weren't just regular soldiers. The SS were like the Nazi elite, weren't they?
Exactly.
I don't think this speaks to there being no intra-Slavic discrimination. I'm pretty sure that if I looked into it, I could find plenty instances of Slavs being specifically demonized. Wasn't it a big meme that like they went into like the Warsaw ghettos and like were looking for like the degenerate Slavic people to control, and they actually found a lot of blonde hair, blue-eyed people because there's actually a lot of like genetic variants amongst Slavs or something. I don't know. This is super fucking weird and random. I don't care about it. Any of this could be true and I would still oppose it. So wait, why are we talking about Hitler?
Okay, yeah, so I'm talking from a historical perspective, how you're saying that, correct me if I'm wrong, you said Hitler was invading other countries, and that's the problem with fascism, because fascism just goes around invading other countries.
No, I have a lot of problems with fascism, and I listed a lot of tenets of fascism, all of which I think are bad.
Specifically, you talked about going around invading other countries.
Even if a fascist country was completely isolationist, I would still hate them and want them to be destroyed.
Okay, that's fine, but would you actually engage in military combat against it?
Wait, and a fascist nation suppressing their people? It would be, well, it's a consequentialist...
obviously it's not suppressing the people. So...
Well, no, they would, unless it's like a purely... So if we're talking fascism the way you're talking about fascism, I'm not imagining like a pure white ethno-state. I'm imagining a state that they want to be pure white, that is in the process of genociding and deporting the non-whites, which is what would happen here in America. Like, there's a lot of non-white people here, you know?
But in America, we'd be creating different areas for different peoples. Like,
for example, I don't want that either.
Okay, but that's regardless of what you want. I'm saying if these circumstances were met, if they're invading other countries, or if the people actually like the government, you yourself said you would still fight against it. So I don't understand how you are any different to the American government in that respect.
Yeah, I know. There's no difference between good and bad things, obviously. Yeah, because I oppose things like genocide, racism, apartheid, so on and so forth, and I want those things to be stopped. And I don't oppose other things that I don't want to be stopped. For instance, the American government usually when engages in imperialism, does so to the benefit of its corporate masters, which profit in some way, war profiteering from their invasion, or they do so to get non-capitalist nations on board with the World Bank and IMF so that they can form exploitative business deals in the near future. So that is a bad outcome. However, an outcome in which a fascist nation has its government destroyed so it can no longer do fascism, that would be a good outcome that I am in favor of.
Yeah, but then you have no principles whatsoever, and you sound
Yes, I
just like
do.
the American government justifying.
How do
I
I have no principles when I just explained the difference between two sets of values that I valued? I very clearly just indicated.
Yeah,
my
okay,
principles.
no, because your values beforehand was saying, yes, I'm against imposing, Western imperialism.
I said
I'm
multiple
against.
times that it's to serve a greater end,
Yeah,
and that I'm
I know.
okay with interventionalism if I believe the consequences of it will be good.
Fuck no, this is getting to the point of like.
No, you're saying there's an inconsistency in these values. They're incredibly consistent. Yes, generally when imperialism is enacted, it is not for the good of people, it is done to make money. I think that imperialism should be enacted in instances where it is likely that it will lead to a propagation of my values, things like freedom and equality and human happiness. So that's very principled. That's a very principled stance that I just took right there.
Yeah, okay, well, your principle is just whatever serves my interests.
No,
and
not whatever serves my interests, whatever serves my axiomatic values. I don't benefit.
Yeah, your values. Okay.
Yes.
So your values.
Yes,
Okay,
my
well,
values
then
of human happiness and freedom and equality. Yes, I
Okay,
will
well-
do
well,
things to serve those values. Yes, that's the
Well,
opposite of
problem
unprincipled.
that's the problem because, for example, from my perspective, is okay. I might not like Venezuela's economic system or how they run their country, but it's their country, so they should have the right to decide how they want to live. It's not my duty or my goal as someone who's a foreign government or foreign peoples to decide how the Venezuelan people live. It's their duty. It's their work.
I disagree.
Why can't you apply that towards my state?
Because your state is fascist and hurts
It
people.
doesn't mean anything. So what?
Yes, it
I'm not
does.
hurting
Yes,
you.
because I want to engage in interventionalism that leads to a betterment of my values, like freedom, equality, and human happiness. And fascism is fundamentally opposed to all of those things. Fascism propagates unfreedom, it damages people, it hates equality and egalitarianism, and it smashes people's happiness. It leads to bad outcomes. So I want to oppose those bad outcomes. That is not unprincipled. It is not inconsistent. It is, in fact, the height of consistency. Interventionalism is just a tool, and the tool can have different outcomes depending on how it's used. This is the heart of consequentialism. I'm not opposed to the tool. I'm opposed to the outcomes.
Hold on. So what is wrong with saying we can be, for example, with regards to the United Nations, for an example, is each nation has, apart from those 5 major countries, everyone has essentially equal rights in regards to the laws under the UN, correct?
I mean, yeah, but the UN's like laws and declarations on human rights don't really affect policy that much. They're pretty impotent.
Okay, so why can't we say this fascist nation or this communist society over here, they have their own separate boundaries, their own borders, but in regards to international law and, for example, the UN, both have equal standards and equal rights and obligations. Why can't we do that instead of saying, I have to go and impose communism or anarcho-syndicalism?
I never said communism or anarcho-syndicalism, though I would eventually like a global workers' revolution. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about opposing fascist ethno-states. It's a little bit different there. But listen, I'll give you this, okay? If the United Nations was somehow like infinitely powerful and they could regulate the propagation of human rights across all nations while still respecting national autonomy, I would be in favor of that. The problem is that that will never happen. The United Nations is weak and impotent because nations will, surprise, do whatever the fuck they want unless there are real material consequences to doing so, which the UN can't provide. And B, because such a set of rules could never cohabitate with a fascist nation. Fascism can't exist in a world where human rights are regulated to the degree that I would like them to be, because fascism is fundamentally antithetical. Every value that you've attributed to fascism is something that I would consider to be unacceptable. So, like, yeah, fascism can't exist under my set of values.
Okay, so then it's literally just, I have to kill you first before you kill me.
In some cases, yes. I believe in self-defense. White nationalism poses an existential threat to the world. So yeah, I believe that any violence against a Nazi, I'm sorry, I should reiterate to YouTube,
I got you.
we're very
I'm gonna bait you.
anti-political violence here, but in Minecraft, I do believe that any violence whatsoever against a Nazi or a white nationalist or a fascist or anyone of those ilk, all of it is morally justified. There are no low bars here. Obviously, the person should be capable of making decisions for themselves. I'm not talking about getting the cribs or anything like that. But yeah, because I would consider that an act of self-defense. You existentially threaten other people. But even then, it's not just self-defense, because I'm not personally threatened. I'm a well-off white guy, cisgender. I don't really look straight as much as I used to. I'm getting gayer by the year, but
You sound a little bit gay.
I sound a little gay. I try, I try to keep that balance. But yeah, like a threat is not posed against me. So it's not so much self-defense as it is the propagation of values, which I believe are inherent to every human being.
Yeah, but again, this is another problem. You're saying it's inherently this way. If I give you an example of, let's say Iceland has their own little ethno-state, which is just has no greater effect on the global scale, you'd still try to destroy that fascist state over in Iceland.
Yes, and I want things to be done right now against Japan, which is a de facto ethno-state and is dying for it. Its immigration policies are contributing to its massive economic downturn.
No, capitalism is destroying Japan, not ethno-states.
Yes, but well, that's two parts to a puzzle, my friend. Capitalism is destroying Japan, true, but capitalism wouldn't be destroying Japan so hard if they would open up their fucking borders. Capitalism is the way. Hold on. Capitalism is the way of the world right now. I want to change that. I work to change that. I advocate for class consciousness constantly on this stream. However, the appropriate way to defeat capitalism is not to be a capitalist nation, but also be racist. That doesn't really defeat capitalism. That just keeps it going, but worse. So that's
but
not.
But you're saying the reason why Japan is doing badly or it's getting worse is because of the ethno-state.
I'm well researched on this. Yes, there are sociologists, researchers, and anthropologists within Japan who agree on that principle. Yes, the Japanese exclusionary, xenophobic mindset has contributed massively to a number of economic and cultural problems that they suffer. Yes, absolutely. I would make that claim any day.
But that only happens because of capitalism. If it was not a capitalist society, then this ethnocentric worldview would not be hurting Japan's economy.
No, probably not as much. I don't disagree with that. Like I said, capitalism fucks everyone over. However, the proper response to capitalism is not to do this.
You sound like you want to fight against the people who are nationalistic more than you want to fight against capitalism. Like all your entire
Wait. Yes, fascists are worse than capitalists, but capitalism's on the block too. Yeah.
What the fuck?
Wait, hold on, because you cringe posted again, because this is a false dichotomy, okay? I can oppose capitalism and also oppose ethnic nationalism. These are not two fundamentally irreconcilable positions to hold. And Japan's people right now are suffering. Their economy is suffering. Human beings, not economic principles, human beings are living worse lives because the government of Japan is xenophobic, and I want to help people. So I think that by reducing the xenophobia, we can help the people. This is in line with what many Japanese researchers, both domestic and foreign, have agreed upon. So yeah, I want that. And we can deal with capitalism too, but I don't think we need to deal with capitalism through ethno-states. I don't think that's how you defeat capitalism.
I mean, literally every single socialist state has been extremely nationalistic and somewhat ethnocentric.
Yeah, I have a huge problem with the foreign socialist experience in the past. I'm an anarchist. I'm not like a fucking tanky or whatever. Yeah, I have a huge problem with that. Absolutely.
So what are you basing your worldview on materially? Like, what examples can you give me of your worldview even slightly working? Like,
when I argue for public policy, I usually argue from the perspective of a democratic socialist, because I don't feel good advocating for theoretically good policies. I believe in my heart that like anarcho-syndicalism is probably the best way forward for humanity, but I recognize that's based mostly on theory, not on data. And B, I don't feel like I'm well read enough in that subject to like really advocate for it publicly. And for C, it's a while down the road. So until we reach that point, I argue for things like workers' co-ops, for example, like internationalism, like liquid democracy, like electoralism to a very minor extent. I argue for things that are understandable and presentable in the modern world, Because I think those are the immediate changes that need to be made. And then from that point, once we've reached that society, one which is demonstrably better than ours, with the worker co-ops and democratically owned means of production, what have you, then we can look at that and say, okay, where do we go next? And at that point, maybe I'll get to argue with the tankies or whatever. But until then, I promote anti-sectarianism, lefties together to implement policies that we know will work. Workers, rise up. Gamers, rise up. Whites, blacks, Asians, Jews, Latinos, Christians, trans people, all of them, rise the fuck up. Not the capitalists, though. Fuck those guys. And not fascists either. Not you.
Interesting, because you're pretty, I think, unique in that regard, because you're very pragmatic in the regards of policies, but ideologically you hope for like a anarcho-syndicalist state.
Yeah, I just don't feel comfortable making, because like I'm a public figure, whether I like it or not. So if I make arguments in favor of things that are like kind of fantastical, like what if we abolished all borders in the state right now and there are no governance and everything is just syndicates? Like, okay, yeah, maybe, but you know, baby steps. Let the material conditions of the world dictate where we move forward.
So, like, for example, when it comes to like the Spanish Civil War, you would be against the anarchists in that regard.
I think that in that instance, the anarchists were better than the alternative. Though the anarchist, well, okay, so I would still support like fantastical anarchy over real life shitty fascism. So I would be cautiously optimistic about the anarchists in Spain, but I think that generally speaking, from what I've read into them, they did a pretty excellent job, like engaging in praxis, promoting their values. Shame they didn't, win. But
yeah, well, you can blame the communists for
that. Wait, what do you mean?
The ones who backstabbed you, you guys were fighting each other while us nationalists just poured through.
Yeah, like, I agree. Yeah, lefties are super fucking infighty. It fucking sucks. That's why I argue against it so hard. I'm very anti-sectarian. The only people. I'm sorry.
But what happens when the communist ends up shooting you in the back of the head?
Well, ideally, I think it all comes back to that tribalism, right? Ideally, I want to create, not create, I'm not that powerful, but I want to help create a leftist movement that doesn't engage in that kind of sectarianism. Because in the past, that leftist, like anarchist versus communist sectarianism is usually brought about by rifts in the material interests of both groups. You have the revolution, or you begin the revolution, and then the communists want to form like a vanguard party to secure state power and use it to form a top-down state-controlled economy as a transitionary period to communism, where the anarchists want to obliterate all of that and let people work through like syndicates.
I understand the basic ideologies of different leftist thoughts.
Yeah, it's all stupid. They're just stupid. They should get together. They should stand. You don't fight until the fucking revolution is over. Seize the means of production, seize the workers' power, and then, when you have that, then argue about how you move forward. It's very dumb, very stupid.
So can I ask you a question real quick? So you are promoting leftist unity for the sake of fighting against capitalism and being able to at least have a proper chance of creating a world revolution?
Yes.
Okay, so if we both agree on the principles that capitalism is destroying Earth, capitalism is probably the worst thing in the current form as we can possibly see today, why could we not, you and I, say, okay, well, let's both fight against capitalism, and once the capitalists have essentially collapsed, or the social order in America or around the world has fallen, then we can start fighting each other. Why do you have to fight me right now instead of fighting?
Because you're worse. And we're not advocating for the same like goals. See, that's the thing. A communist and an anarchist can both work together to secure the means of production and form a democratic socialist state. That's in the transitory process for both of them, because you need to achieve class consciousness before you can move forward with anything. You and I don't have anything in common. Forward for you means consolidating state and corporate power to create an isolationist ethno-state. Forward for me means essentially the opposite: to invoke democratic power over state and corporate power, to open up borders more, to allow freedom of movement, freedom of autonomy in this country. We have no common goals in the near future.
No, but we do have the one common goal of tearing down the current neoliberalism establishment.
But there's no way. But you can do it in different ways. I want to tear down neoliberalism to make the world better, and you want to do it to make it worse. So, like, we're pulling in different directions, even if we're pulling at the same target. Whereas anarchists and communists are pulling from the same target in the same direction, with like a split down the road, like a mile down the road. There's a split between anarchists and communists, but you and I are pulling in opposite directions right now.
I'm saying both of us will never win as long as neoliberalism exists.
Oh, I don't agree. I think that eventually one of us is going to win. Because capitalism, I do. I'm very Marxian.
That's fine. You're right. Okay, fair enough. I actually agree with you on that.
Well, they'll die, but one of us will win. And if we win, like the socialists, anarchists, communists,
leftists, yeah.
I don't know what comes next, honestly. I hope we do well. I can never. There's no guarantees with revolutions. But I know it'll be bad if you guys win. So I consider you guys to be, at least capitalism gets us some like net good. Some, not total, but like there are some benefits, you know, some level of economic prosperity. Capitalism functions best while like maintaining like a globalist economic framework. I like that. I like internationalism. So there are some commonalities. But between you and me, it's night and day. I really wish you'd come on over, you know. Our shared hatred for liberalism, I think, could motivate us towards greater ends. But you gotta.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That
but you hate black people.
No, I don't. No, I don't. Don't go there.
Hey, come on, we're all.
So pretty much right now, I have to go to the tankies and say, all right, let's team up fight against the anarchists right now.
Yeah, and the fact that tankies will sometimes ally with reactionaries in an effort to like deal with liberalism is one of the reasons why tankies are a group of people I don't cohabilitate with. I don't accept tankies into my anti-sectarianism.
You don't accept tankies?
Yeah, because they tend to work with you. Why would I do that? And then you'll shoot me in the back of the head when I'm not looking.
Yeah, I mean, like for example, like for the alt-right, we actually unironically support Jeremy Corbyn for that example.
I know, and Tulsi, fucking Tulsi Gabbard. Yeah, I know. You got and Yang. You guys have some weird picks sometimes. I try to like. I don't really know why Tulsi Gabbard. Is it because she's anti-war?
Yeah, it's because she's anti-war.
All right. I mean, that's whatever. I think that's good. I don't like war.
Yeah.
Like as a principle, I don't like war. That is to say, sometimes it can be useful.
Just like terrorism.
Yes, just like terrorism. Can I get you off the JQ? Can we like move you away from that?
I think it's. I mean, it's so like clear to me that it's real that it's kind of hard.
All right.
Sorry.
Well, you know that if we're talking about ethnic groups that cohabilitate and use like the transnational capitalist economy to like fuck over other like ethnic groups, you realize we're talking about white people, right? Like everything that Jews get accused of is what white people do, but much worse and much more obvious. You know, like all of it. Like Jews have in-group preference, and they use it to promote social and economic values that benefit their interests. And they do it to fuck over the other. Like these are white. It's white people.
No, the fundamental difference.
It's not a conspiracy either. It's like obvious sociology.
No. I think this is the problem with you. I'd say, regards to JQs, you don't quite understand it that thoroughly. Like like our problem with the Jewish question is, because Jews live as a minority within our countries, they're the ones who subvert within the country. White people don't go into brown people's countries and start slowly taking over the media.
Wait,
and then
what? Wait, yes, they do. The imperialist empire of the past 200 years has been white people.
Different empires conquering different lands is not the same thing as minorities living in a country and
it's worse.
Taking over.
Yeah, well, wait, yes, it is. There was a minority of British people that lived in India, and slowly by subverting their political system and by maneuvering their economic system, they were able to. What?
They militarily conquered those areas and then enforced their British way of doing things.
Wait, so you think that military conquest is better than what the Jews are doing?
I'm saying the difference. I'm saying that. Well, yes, it is. It is. It's much more
wait, it
honorable.
is? Wait, wait. Okay, just so I know, just for clarification's sake. So you believe that the past 400 years of global white imperialist dominance over basically every part of the world is less harmful than the Jews doing bad, like because the Jews haven't led to like a genocide. They haven't led to like an extermination of a people. No one's getting like deported.
Hold on.
But I can point to like genocides in India. Like I don't get it. Like how?
Hold on. I never said it was quote unquote worse or bad. I'm saying it was less honorable. It's less honorable to be a parasite and slowly.
Wait. For one. They're not Parasites, come on. Jews have a
Definition of parasite.
well, no,
It's a
well,
definition of
no. Again, no more so than whites are. Jews do pretty well in this country economically. They benefit per capita, or they benefit America per capita more than, like, say, the average white person would, because of their generally like higher level of
I'm not sure about
educational
Goldman Sachs,
attainment.
mate. I'm not sure about Goldman Sachs.
I'm sorry? Do you think
I'm
all
not sure if
Jews work
Sachs
at Goldman
actually helps
Sachs?
people.
Wait,
Saying that's a
if we're
Jewish-
going to
that's
talk
Jewish
about this,
organized-
if we're going to talk about this, I need you to not do it in bad faith, okay? I would really like that. So this is what I'm about to tell you is a fact, okay? In terms of economic engagement with the country, Jews are disproportionately represented, which means they're actually the opposite of parasites. They produce more per capita than you would get from other demographics. Now, yes, a lot of them work in banking. However, whether we like it or not, banking is a system by which the economy is stimulated within capitalism. So within the system we're in right now, they are producing more. It's not like your average white person is like subverting capitalist fucking hegemony. If all the capitalist like framework that we live under, if not run by Jews, is run by whites. So it's not as though like as a race Jews are causing capitalism. I know Hitler liked to say that. So, like, what? Like, they're not parasites by definition. And I don't care what's more honorable. I would say that invading India and leading to genocide and starvation that killed millions of people is pretty fucking dishonorable, as opposed to just, like, being Jewish in this country.
Okay, hold on. So let me quickly clarify something. So when I talk about parasites and you talk about Jewish people having greater GDP and quote unquote contributing more to the economy.
In what way are they parasites?
I mean, when I talk about like when you talk about Jewish people contributing to the country, I mean, if you look at the labor force of Jewish people compared to white people, it is so disproportionately outweighed for white people who actually engage in labor, where Jewish people usually just engage in bullshit like methodology of like speculation or in the media or do some bullshit Hollywood movies. Like,
Wait. Okay, hold on. So you just listed a lot of things. So media and analysis and speculation and banking, like what? So wait, so your belief is that any group of people is parasitic if they work in media, if they work in social analysis, if they do like, and like what? Like who's not a parasite? Construction workers?
saying like they just sit there and do mental gymnastics. They're not actually building the country up themselves. They're not the ones who are
What do you
actually
mean
creating.
sit there and do mental gymnastics? A huge part of our culture is built up by Hollywood. Hollywood is probably
exactly.
one of the
Hollywood
greatest
is cancer.
cultural.
That's the problem.
Hold on. You just made two positions there. You said they do nothing, and then I point out they actually do a lot, and you're like, well, what they do is bad. I don't think that what Hollywood does is
sitting there and making movies.
Hold on. Wait. Sitting there. Wait. My dad works in the movie industry. Hold on. Nobody's sitting there. It's really hard work.
Yeah, thanks. I'm saying comparing.
Wait,
that
art
to
is work.
people.
You realize
Hold
that,
on.
right?
Hold on.
No, I don't need to hold on because this is a really dumb framing. You're like, Jews are parasites because they don't do anything. Well, actually, what they do is movies. Well, actually, they actually do work in movies, but that's bad. And all whites are construction workers and they actually build things. What the fuck are you talking about? If you have a problem with like effete intellectual snobs who don't build the country, then you have a problem with like a huge portion of the United States labor base, which is not defined exclusively by Jewish people. If you have a problem with that, you don't have a problem with Jews. So this is what I mean. Every time when people try to like argue the Jewish questions, they use proxies. Well, it's not ridiculous. You argue proxies. You're like, well, Jews are bad because they're parasites. Well, how? They aren't parasitic in literally any like economic definition. Oh, well, because they don't do any work. Here's where they work. Well, yeah, they do some of that work. Many of them don't. They work in all industries, but the work they do is work one way or another. Oh, well, the work they do is bad. And all whites do building. I don't know. Like, what are you getting at? What the fuck? How are they parasites?
Can I give you the definition of what a parasite is?
Sure.
Okay, a parasite. An organism that lives in or on an organism of another species and benefits by deriving nutrients from that other experience of the host.
Yeah, like red-haired people.
So when I talk about Jewish people specifically, when we look at the concentration of wealth or the concentration of power,
yeah, how are they parasites?
And the exclusionary behavior that they engage politically,
yeah, like whites.
But it's what the fuck? It's a white people's nation. It's not a Jewish nation.
Whoa! See, there you go. That's your fucking giveaway right there. You don't actually care about exclusionary behavior. You just don't like it when they do it. Exclusionary behavior. I'm sorry.
No.
Sorry, you're reaching to me right now, buddy. Exclusionary behavior is bad one way or another. So for you to say like, the Jews are bad because they do exclusionary behavior, and then for me to say, well, whites do it too, and you're like, but it's okay when whites do it. No, it's not.
Do you know what parasite means? Do you know what parasite means?
This isn't a white nation. This is a nation of everyone who lives inside of it.
Historically,
I don't care. No. Listen, I don't. This whole like character by white nation. I don't care. This nation right now is occupied by everyone. Hold on, by everyone who lives in it. I don't care about nations. I care about people, and the people in this country are all equally American. They all equally contribute to the character of this country. So when you're like, well, exclusionary behavior is bad for the Jews do it because the Jews aren't from here, and that's bad, and it's bad when they. But the white people, when they do it, it's okay if they do it because this is their country. This is asinine moral logic. This is stupid, and it's beneath you. Come on, just say it. Just, you're okay with everything the Jews do. You just want a scapegoat to blame capitalism on. That's fine. Just say it. Just say we're tired of blaming the black people. We decided it was dumb of us to say that they were low IQ, but also orchestrating the downfall of the white race. We've changed our tune. It's Jews now. Jews are the ones who do it, even though everything they do.
It's always been Jews.
Everything they do. Well, no, the Jewish conspiracy theories have changed quite a bit over the past 2 centuries.
Really? How's it changed?
Well, it used to be that Jews were just like shifty usurers that would go from country to country.
Right now.
Oh, hold on. That would go from country to country. But it used to be people believed that the downfall of America's racial homogeneity would be brought about by the Yellow Peril. It would be brought about by China sending their immigrants over. That's why the Chinese Exclusion Act was passed. In that time, hold on. In that time, they were the the smoky shadowed perpetrators of the whites' downfall. So we did that. We ran its course. It's not happening. Now it's the Jews. And okay, just admit it. You want a scapegoat. Why can't you just say that? Everything you blame the Jews for doing, whites do more. They do more. They do it to greater groups of people, and it leads to greater harm. All of this exclusionary behavior, all of this intergroup tribalism, all of it is done by them and worse.
It's not the same thing.
Huh?
It's not the same thing because if it's your nation,
it's not their people. I don't care if it's their. I don't give a fuck if Japan. No, listen, I know you do, but it's stupid. The world doesn't turn to the clock of nations. Nations built nothing. Human beings built things. We built this society. We built this world. Humans built my computer. Humans built me. I don't give a fuck about nations. So when you argue that one type of in-group preference, of tribalism, of like national like subversion, this is fine because whites do it, but this other type isn't fine because Jews do it. We don't like them. This is asinine to me. This resides upon a presupposition that I will never buy into because humans hold up the sky, not states.
Let me frame it a different way. So from a historical perspective, on looking at 1900s period of all European Western countries, specifically America, we want to talk about, and we look at the different behavior within the populations and how these populations viewed themselves and viewed the nation as they created it, and it's how they defined it, it's how their ancestors defined it. We can see a drastic change in policy that was at the detriment of those peoples who was inherited those countries and who built those countries.
You say that, but the standards of living have been rising consistently in spite of the increased influx of immigration.
Shit about standards of living.
Well, no, yeah, because you don't care about people. When you say that white people get hurt, you mean this in an ephemeral way that can't really be measured. But when I say that people are getting hurt by fascist policies, I can point to numbers. I can point to genocides and deportations.
So can I.
Wait, excuse me. So can you explain to me how white people have been hurt in actual empirical language over the past 60 years by the inclusion of non-whites? And this is, by the way, a whataboutism from you, because this has nothing to do with the JQ. But please.
It does. But
I know, because Jews do everything bad. I know. So what? Explain to me.
Oh my fucking God. Okay.
Dude, I've been on poll. I know what they're like. Yes, everything bad is because of the Jews. When black people are on TV, it's because of the Jews. When fucking gay people kiss on TV, it's because of the Jews. I know. I've read the forums, my dude. Everything bad that happens is because of Jews. So what is it? What point are we on? Why is it
Okay,
okay
so-
for whites to do all the bad things, but not okay when Jews do it?
Explain to me. You're not listening. You're deliberately trying to not listen to me.
I'm listening to
telling
you. It's the same
I'm
shit I
telling
read from
you-
Poll. You're just more articulate than they are, which to your credit makes you sound better, but it's not enough to argue against the fact that you're unironically saying that everything that fucking JQ like posits Jews do is what whites do, except the whites doing it isn't a conspiracy theory, and the
not the same
JQ
thing.
is, and when the whites do it, it leads to much worse outcomes.
Oh my god. When you look at the word parasite, it's when a different organism attaches itself to another.
There are no
to
wait,
its
wait, wait.
host.
Stop with the euphemistic language. No one's a parasite. No one's an organism attaching itself to anything else. This is a country with people, and the people in it who are Jews are every bit as much American as the people in it who are not Jews. There's no parasite. No one's leeching off anything. Not by racial lines, at least. I believe that, like, the capitalist class are. Some of the capitalist class are Jews, and I oppose them with the same fire and fury that I do a white or a black capitalist. But I don't
Okay,
target white or black or
Okay,
Jewish people
sure,
for that.
Sure. So in American history, from 1920, when the Immigration Acts and the national character was clearly defined by law and the attitude of the peoples within those lands.
Yes, it was an ethno-state. That's bad.
Yes, it was. Okay, hold on. I'm saying from that perspective, from those people's perspectives, those human beings who lived in that area and who created that nation for themselves, we can look at the behaviors within the Jewish community. And within the Jewish community, they have engaged in deliberate behaviors that undermine the character of America from that period of time.
Can you, in numbers, can I get this in numbers? Because this literally reads like prose to me. And then everything was fine in the white nation, but then the seditious Jew snuck in, their long nose creaking apart the lock used to open up America's vault of secrets, which they then use against the white population. I don't know what the fuck you mean. The standards of living have been rising. All of the problems that we have in this country right now are mostly attributed to capitalism, which existed, like, I don't know if you buy the whole capitalism Jews invented capitalism thing.
No, the Dutch did.
Well, yeah, it was predominantly, European export. A white European export. So yeah, the problems in this country are caused by capitalism, and they haven't been getting worse since the fucking Hart-Celler Act. So, like, I don't know, like, how are they parasites?
So I just told you, when they hoard political power or money, or generally speaking, they try to undermine or they try to suck out the...
How? How are they undermining? Wait, how are Jews undermining this country?
Political organizations such as ADL, such as the SPLC, such as
Wait,
AIPAC,
what do you mean they?
it.
Wait, that's Zionists. And according to you, Jews came into this country before Israel was formed. Well, the modern state of Israel. So what do you mean?
I'm giving you examples of just Jewish organizations in general. Like,
okay, yeah, but wait, how are they hurting this country? Those organizations are bad, but it's not like this country is like breaking its back under the weight of the Jewish oligarchy.
Dude, 1 second, my laptop's 1%, so can you just give me a minute?
Yeah, no problem.
All right, cheers.
I'll get to donations when we're done, okay? Yeah, the Jews have been parasitically draining his battery power. God damn. Every time, dude, I just want to talk about, like, numbers. Like, how does white supremacy hurt? Well, it leads to this and this. How did Jews hurt America? Oh, well, you see, they've subverted the Jewish, the white, the cultural character. What? How are Jews hurting America? Oh, well, they created AIPAC, even though that happened like 40 or 50 years after the time frame I was just describing. Oh, well, like, I don't know. Like, what? I was gonna do a video on the Jewish question today, but I feel like I'm covering it, right? Like, are we doing the JQ right now?
You hear me?
Hey.
All right, so I'm back.
Someone who claims to be Jewish just donated me $10. So to your credit, your praxis has just stripped $10 from a Jewish American person.
No, because he's using you to to continue out his plan.
I'm gonna use that money on groceries, my dude. All right. Okay. How are Jews hurting this country in a way that isn't capitalists hurting this country?
Okay, sure thing. So when I talk about from a European perspective, from a white perspective, this is the framework I'm using.
Okay. So again, when I talk about white in-group... Wait, are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay. When I talk about white in-group preference, I can demonstrate like all of the genocides, war, and apartheid that's come about, how white in-group preference has led to the subversion, the execution, the deportation, the sterilization of people of color in this country. I can like point to big numbers, big juicy numbers. But when you talk about Jewish people and Jewish in-group preferences hurting America, you have to use like flowery poetic language that doesn't really mean anything unless you already buy into the
do you want me to
premise.
get? Do you want me to get statistically? Like, do you want to look at the amount of Jewish billionaires who are engaging in deliberate
Well,
policies?
I asked you for examples of like how Jews are hurting America in a way that isn't just capitalists hurting America.
Okay, mass immigration. Immigration.
Okay.
Which undermines the labor market
hold on.
of white people.
This isn't capitalists. This is Jews.
It's both. It's intertwined.
Okay. So I would target. So if it's intertwined, so are white people and capitalists. But I'm not anti-white. I'm anti-capitalist. You know, there are a lot of leftists. There are a lot of leftists who are like, you know what, fuck it. White people just keep doing the bad capitalisms. What if we just nuke the white people? But I disagree with them because I don't believe in targeting ethnic groups as a proxy for economic issues. You seem to. So even though what you're about to say is a product of capitalism, you will blame it on the Jews.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, but how? Wait, but we can even target this point. What about mass immigration? Like, there are problems with immigration, but typically immigrants benefit the economy and they commit lower crime per capita than the domestic population.
I don't give a shit about the GDP, first of all.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, so, okay, don't worry about, I can understand where you're coming from that argument. It's probably not the best example. So let's talk about culture, for example. Let's talk about, like, say, Hollywood, for example. That's probably the best example.
You're going to have to work really hard to, like, prove to me that showing black people and trans people in movies is, like, hurting white people.
Okay, so if you're encouraging the miscegenation between different races, especially against white people,
hold on. We've already buckled here on this one. Okay, so, for one, encouraging miscegenation is a funny way of saying having movies and TV shows that have like black and white couples. Like,
okay,
like
but I'm saying, hold on. I'm saying if they are deliberately doing this in the purpose of eliminating European peoples, is that not a problem in your eyes? If
for one, don't. Are you going to Kalergi plan me? No. No one is putting black people in movies. If they're doing it deliberately, then honestly, no. I don't care about race. I'm not a race realist.
You don't care about genocide other people by
Whoa! I'm sorry. So if Kristallnacht isn't a genocide, putting black people in movies is?
I don't think it's the same thing as trying to wipe out a race to killing 100 Jews. I don't think that's the same thing.
Well, for one, it was more than 100 millions of dollars in property damage. Buildings were burned down. Synagogues were destroyed. People were forced out of their homes. So for one, let's calm down on that one, okay? And for two, no one's genociding white people. Literally nobody.
Hold on. I'm saying, hypothetically, if this is correct, if you could accept this term of Jewish people deliberately doing this for the purpose of eliminating European peoples.
Even though I don't believe that's happening, I don't believe Jews are doing that. Even if they were, even if the Jews were deliberately putting black people and white people as couples together in movies to promote miscegenation to like eliminate the white race, no, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I don't give a fuck about race.
Hold on. Okay, so I'll give you an example.
Wait, isn't that also getting rid of black people? Wait, if black people and white people both have a kid, then the kid is just as much white as they are black. How is that getting rid of white
it's bad against both people. I mean, black nationalists agree with me, so
yeah, and they're also fascists who I disagree with.
Yeah,
so wait,
Louis Farrakhan's pretty cool.
Okay, so then it's not. So it's genocide of black people for black and white people to have kids.
I mean, it's not quite the same because the population differences of different races. So it's
how is it not the same? Wait, if you believe that if white people having brown babies is white genocide, isn't black people having brown babies black genocide?
How many black people are there compared to how many white people are there?
What difference does that make?
Because if black people still exist as a race, as a coherent concept, but white people no longer exist in that regard, then obviously there's a difference.
I don't want any race to exist as a concept.
Dude, I don't care. But I'm saying if this happens and you recognize that and the difference,
I still wouldn't have a
between-
problem with it. Wait. So in your logic right now, what you're positing is that by the Jews putting black and white couples together in movies, the black dudes will sleep with the white ladies and impregnate them with his fertile black BBC seed, and then she'll pop out brown babies, and 3 generations down the road there will be no white people, only brown people, but the black people will still be there, standing proud as their original Nubian genes stand out amongst the impure inbreds, and then they, with no opposition from whites, will be able to like take control of the country. Is that like unironically what you're saying? Because I think that's the logical consequence.
I'm saying Jewish people who are extremely anti-European, anti-white, engage in
whoa.
anti-European,
Who's
anti-white
Jewish
behavior.
wait, what do you mean by anti-European?
I mean, they're deliberately trying to reduce the population of European peoples by whether it be
Who's European
demographics,
peoples?
power. You know what the fuck a white person is? I'm
So
pretty sure
wait,
you're
say
dude.
white. So why say anti-European? There are black Europeans. There are brown
No,
Europeans.
there
Say
isn't.
white.
Dude, don't be a smartass. You know what I mean.
I'm not going to let you use Nazi euphemisms, then just skip over them, even though they're
Everyone
technically
understands
wrong.
the term. This is
When
not
I say
Nazi
European,
terminology.
I mean a person who lives in Europe. There are black and brown people in Europe.
Okay,
You
fine.
mean
Native
white people.
European peoples. Native European peoples.
No,
happy?
no. There are evidence of Moors and brown people living in Europe well over 1,000 years ago, buddy. In the south of
It's not
Spain, in areas that
true.
are now Slavic. Fucking Rome had black citizens, people we would now call black. Just
That
say
doesn't make you
white.
native. What the fuck are you talking about? That doesn't make you
Wait, so
native.
how far back do you have to go before you're native? We all came from Africa. Native means you've been there for like 2,000 years. If Rome had
Dude.
black citizens,
Oh my god. Dude,
Rome
if I
had
do
a
DNA
black
test,
emperor.
DNA test, and I can trace back my lineage.
We all go back to Africa, my dude. There are
No,
black
we don't.
people.
Oh my
There are
God,
black.
dude,
Well, hold
stop.
on. There are literally black people who have been in Europe for 2,000 years. Rome had a black emperor.
Dude, that doesn't mean shit.
Yes, it
Because it's
does.
not
It means
black,
that Europe
because they
is
come from
not
Africa.
intrinsically white. Neither are native Europeans. Just say white people. Why do you? This is what I mean by Nazis lying. The term Europe and native European are both factually incorrect. White
Really?
is what you're looking. White is the term you're looking for here. But you use the first two because you can't help but lie. You love the euphemism. Just say
It's not
white.
a lie. It's a fact. Okay, let me ask you a question. Can we do DNA testing to find out where people originate from?
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
Yes,
We can
and there
understand
are
where
black people who can trace their lineage within Europe back thousands of years. I would call that a native
not
European.
because the blackness of them is because the native European part of them, the white part of them, not the black part of them. That's why.
No, they lived in your. Well, okay, now, okay. Nobody is purebred. If you, well, very few people are
Well, there is.
pure.
Well, there
if you go
is.
back far
Well,
enough.
there
in.
is.
Well, wait, buddy, please. Most people aren't, especially in Europe, which had a lot of fucking
You're being
interplay.
semantics. You're getting down to the weeds. You're being
No, wait. I'm not. You're
being
literally
dishonest.
using dishonest terminology because you're afraid of just saying anti-white. If we say European, fine, there are black and brown people in Europe right now. There are fucking Somali refugees that are in Europe. If you say native European, I would point to black and brown people that can trace their lineage in Europe back thousands of years. So you don't mean either of those things. You mean white. This is what I mean by Nazis lying. Why can't you just use the right terminology?
It's not lying. It's just
You
what it is.
are.
Fine.
You're
White people.
lying. Just say
How-
white. You mean
Fine,
native
are you
European as a proxy for white. Just say white.
And white people. I mean, the fact that you have to
Just
be, like,
say white.
engaged-
Why is it
Okay,
hard?
white.
Yes.
Because you-
So can you explain to me how Jews are anti-white?
Okay, fine. So when they encourage miscegenation, which will reduce the white population, I think that's one indication.
Nope.
Number two.
Wrong. Wait, that also reduces the black population.
Okay, I don't give a shit. I'm talking about white people right now.
Okay, so we're talking about white people. How is white people having the freedom to have sex with black people anti-white?
I said when they deliberately do this in a propaganda
Well, you haven't
way.
proved they've done it deliberately in a propagandist way, but I can prove. Well, hold
Because
on.
it's called
But I
self-
can prove to you that white-on-white relationships were propagated in Hollywood for a really long time, in large part because of politics. There's a reason why people protested the fucking the original Star Trek TV series kiss between Kirk and Uhura, the first black-white kiss on television. It was because of politics. So everything that comes out of our media is politically driven. It's not like, yes, the natural state of things is when only white people kiss on TV. But then the Jews introduced the black man and white genocide began. This is what I mean by talking in euphemisms. Here's what I'm going to try and extrapolate your argument for you, okay? So you're saying that being anti-white is making movies that have black and white people kissing or being in relationships or whatever,
What happens
because
with
that
that?
promotes
What's the outcome?
miscegenation, which reduces the
outcome?
white population.
Come.
I fundamentally reject the idea this is anti-white. I'm more anti-white than that, and I'm anti-white. I literally want whiteness to be abolished. Like, I'm more anti-white than that is.
Yeah, but the difference between you is you don't want the actual genetic clusters or the genetic haplogroups to disappear, or those people who look a certain way to disappear. You just don't care about the racial categories of
Yes,
anything.
I appreciate you recognizing the distinction. I actually unironically appreciate that. But the reason why I don't care is I don't care what race people are. Why should I care if a person... Why should I care if a family that used to be white is now brown? Why should I care?
Because your legacy, your history,
whoa,
your culture,
wait, stop, no, one at a
heritage,
time. What do you mean my legacy? If I have a brown kid, if I fuck a black lady and my kid is brown, his legacy is still intact. He looks up at wait, stop. He looks up at me and I'm his father, and he's got grandfathers and great grandfathers. What do you mean legacy? The legacy is still there. What do you mean ancestry? He's still got the father, the grandfather, the great grand. Nothing changes. It's just the skin tone, dude.
Well, first of all, dude, race isn't about skin. I don't care about that much about skin.
Race is
color,
no the typical like anthropological biological perspective right now is that race isn't real. That it really is just a collection of visible phenotypes and a few very minor genotypes that people collect into like a collective scientific definition of race because it reinforces social prejudices. That's the scientific consensus right now.
No, because no. The scientific understanding of what race is a unique genetic clusters and haplogroups that can be differentiated.
But there are unique genetic clusters that exist that aren't like constituent to our current idea of race. The reason we chose racial lines as they exist today is because of social reasons, not biological reasons. There are intro-white genetic cluster differences that are greater than the average genetic cluster difference between me and a Latino person. We chose to put these barriers where they are now because they reinforce pre-existing social prejudices.
Okay, so once we got over that, so let's go back to the original point. If I'm saying to you that if people, such as the Jewish people who are politically engaged in behaviors that are deliberately racialized to disproportionately attack European people...
No one's being attacked. What do you mean being attacked? Who's being attacked?
It means they're engaging in negative behaviors.
It's not negative. Nobody's being hurt. It's literally just like if you want to fuck a black dude, you can fuck a black dude. And if you want to fuck a white dude, you can fuck a white dude. How anyone being hurt? You have to use like such extreme language. Genocide. People are being hurt. Anti-white. What do you mean? Well, there are black people in movies these days. Like, what?
If I give you an example of, let me find that quote real quick. Okay, easy example. So, if a Jewish person says to or creates a movie that is deliberately trying to engage in a power dynamic,
you can't establish they're deliberately trying to do this, by the way.
Do you want me to give you quotes of Jewish people doing these things?
Wait. Wait. I would do the same thing. I also believe in presenting racial diversity in media to encourage a specific political agenda. So this isn't a Jewish thing. This is like a progressive thing. There are non-Jewish progressives who promote the same thing. Again, you're using an ethnic group as a proxy for other values right now.
No, because Jewish intellectuals are the ones who created this entire movement to begin with.
What movement?
Irish people didn't do this.
What movement?
Quote unquote intellectualism or breaking down racial categories.
Whoa. No, critical theory is the bedrock upon which all of this is laid. That was developed by Marx. Marx was of Jewish heritage. If you want to argue that like Marx is Jewish, so everything he came up with and everything that derives from is Jewish, then I guess I'll give you that point. But then I would just argue that it's all good.
But would you deny the Jewish involvement in leftist thought, like?
Of course of course there's involvement. Jews have been like hold on. Wait again. Yes, Jews disproportionately black. I don't think that means you get to use them as a proxy. In the same reason that I don't target white people when what I mean to target is like fascists or like oligarchs or like capitalists. I don't believe in targeting ethnic groups as a proxy for real social issues. But what's more, I think that the fucking Frankfurt School critical theory bullshit is a good thing. And I defend that any day. And there's a reason why the Jews are in that position. Jews, at least non-Zionist Jews, intellectual Jews that work in academia, tend to be predominantly left-leaning because they, more than any other group in human history, have experienced the devastating consequences of fascism and white nationalism.
Yeah, interesting how there's a contradiction there between the Jewish community, how even though those leftists still support Zionism...
Whoa, no, hold on. You're confusing leftist and liberal. I have never in my life let a leftist who is pro-Israel Anti-Zionism is a super common lefty talking point. You can see it if you want to go on Reddit. You can see it on late stage capitalism. You can see it on Chapo Trap
grandchildren
House.
living in Israel. Like literally,
Wait.
has
I'm sorry.
Grandchildren living in Israel.
Okay, that's a cool talking point. It doesn't speak to the fact that leftists are in like large part opposed to Zionism.
The leftists are, they're not Jewish leftists for the most part.
No. Trust me. There is a thriving academic space where Jewish leftists shit on Israel and Netanyahu all the fucking time because they say that the diaspora Jews aren't real Jews. Like Israelis, they say diaspora anti-Zionist Jews are not real Jews. So the leftists...
They're self-hating. They say self-hating.
No, they're not they're not self-hating. They just don't like fascist ethno-states
I'm saying that's what the Israelis call them.
Yeah, they also say, they say they're self-hating. They say they're not real Jews. I have heard that one before. Even I think Ben Shapiro has said that, and he's a Zionist. They say a bunch of fucking shit about diaspora, leftist, non-Zionist Jews. So no, there are no leftists don't support Israel, not Jewish leftists either. Like to anything that I've seen. I'm sure you can find a couple of examples, but so I was
going to give you an example of Jewish Voice for Peace. That's a pretty left-wing group, isn't it?
Jewish Voice of Peace. I've never heard of them. Hold on.
Have you heard of that one?
Hold on. United States left-wing activist organization focused on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So what are they? Are they like super Zionist?
No, they're leftist Jews who support Palestinian rights. However, they still support a two-state solution.
Okay, that's not Zionist. Zionists don't want a two-state solution. I agree this isn't radical enough. Like, I agree with that. But your original contention here was that leftists are Zionists, and now we've backed up to this one organization of Jewish left-leaning people want a two-state solution. We've backed up quite a bit from the initial claim.
No, because literally every leftist organization that is Jewish, Jewish run, is still somewhat pro-Israel. Or
because fucking Israel astroturfs like crazy. But there are academic institutions with Jewish roots that go back centuries that are very decidedly anti-Zionist. The Frankfurt School and all of its intellectual antecessors are a perfect example of this. People who engage in postmodernist theory or critical theory or post-structuralist theory are to a man anti-Zionist. I have never met a single one of them who is like pro-Zionism. That's a Jewish intellectual tradition for the most part, being propagated by leftists, which is anti-Zionist. So the idea that like Jews are a monolithic group that will like even lefties of them will support Zionism is patently untrue. They're just people, my dude.
I mean, if you can give me like an organization or some type of like actual like institution that is run by Jewish people that is anti-Zionist, I'd like to see that because I haven't seen any.
There aren't many. Most Jewish organizations are going to be run by Zionists because that's where the money's is, and orgs cost money. If you go into leftist organizations, whether or not they have Jewish predecessors, they will be anti-Zionist.
Well, I mean, that's fundamentally the problem, isn't it? Because if you see the organized
yeah,
Jewish
Israel's
community,
an issue. I agree, but we're so far off the fucking beaten track here.
Community anywhere you go is still fundamentally hypocritical in this regard.
What's the hypocrisy
of ethno-nationalism for me, but not for thee?
No. For anyone who supports Zionism is an enemy of me. I am not a Zionist.
I know, but I'm saying the Jews are hypocrites by saying we support racial nationalism.
Yes, and you do the same thing. You say we get to engage in in-group preferences, white people, but Jewish people don't. Yes, people like you, fascists, will always do this. You think it's okay when you engage in like self-aggrandizing behavior, but bad when other groups do it. Same as Zionist fascists. They think it's okay when they do an ethno-state, but not okay when other people do an ethno-state. I agree. You're both problems and sides of the same coin. Fascists are similar in that respect.
Hold on. You really need to like understand. Like you got the wrong idea. I'm not being hypocritical by saying other people cannot engage in ethnocentric behavior. I'm saying that the problem deliberately with Jews is that within a quote-unquote white nation, which was America, which was Europe for the most part until recently, these people engaged in behavior that undermined that very nature of being a white nation. You mean what
white European colonial settlers and imperialists have done to the entire world over the past 250 years that you said was bad? Was more honorable? You
There's a difference between-
my
oh my God.
dude, take the
There's-
L. You've unironically
there's-
defended the
God.
worst version of what you accuse Jews of doing in a conspiracy
because
theory.
there's a difference between invading a country and conquering it through military means and slowly being a tiny minority and slowly taking over and being subversive.
Yeah, the difference is the earlier one. For one, no one's taking over. The Jews aren't taking over the U.S. Again, you're speaking from conspiracy, and you still haven't even come close to demonstrating that. Right? They already have. Yes, it's a fact. No. I know. But listen, this is how you don't realize how biased you are. There is right now a conspiracy theory that a small minority of Jews in this country are anti-white because they have black and white people kissing, and that's bad because it might lead to less white babies, and that's bad because then they won't be able to represent their racial interests, even though it doesn't materially harm them. But that's worse than white people literally killing tens or hundreds of millions of brown people across the world in an imperialist regime designed to exploit money from host countries. That's not parasitic, but what the Jews do are. Dude, you're beyond biased. You can't see out of it.
No.
You can't see the fucking horizon, my dude, for the fucking boxes of bias you've stacked in your apartment.
Just give me a second. As I said, two armies attacking each other, or one country going to another country and saying, we declare war and we're taking over.
You're unironically saying that it's bad. It's bad when Jews make movies with black people, white people kissing, but invading India, killing millions of people through genocide and intentional starvation. I mean, is that really a white people thing, even though white people are by far the greatest perpetrators of imperialism in the history of the planet? No, maybe the problem is just interventionism. Oh, but when the Jews in Hollywood make movies, even though there are tons of non-Jews that work there too, that's a Jewish issue. You will never be able to see beyond your bias because you are incapable of A, comparing like analytically the behaviors of Zionist groups and your own, and B, recognizing that you are using ethnicities as an inaccurate proxy for the thing you really claim to have an issue with, which is a variety of negative social and cultural consequences. You use Jews as a proxy when in reality you target that. It's called a Mott and Bailey. You say you're anti-Jew, but when targeted on that, you back up to the much safer position of, well, capitalism's bad. Well, the movie industry's bad. Okay, dude, I know. I'm a leftist, all right? You will never be able to move beyond this space.
So, again, you're just either not listening or being dishonest, because the very concept of what I'm talking about is so drastically different. I don't understand how you can easily conflate the two. I never said that imperialism or Britain going into India was a morally good thing, or even a good thing in the long run.
Well, no, but it's an indication that white people consistently engage in the behaviors that you have to invent a fucking conspiracy theory to attribute to Jews. I'm not saying you're saying it's good. I'm saying that you are literally willing to blame all the problems in this country on a shadowy cabal of Jewish overlords as a conspiracy theory. It is. Shut up. And then, but when you can point to very real, very empirical evidence of white people doing that but worse to the entire planet, you can't then go and say white people are parasites in other host nations as well. You are locked into bias, and this is all you'll ever be able to move from.
The British were parasites in India. I'm not being a hypocrite about these things. I'm saying there's a difference between engaging in a military conflict and slowly.
I never said there wasn't a difference. I'm saying that everything you attribute to the Jews, the whites have done and worse. And I don't buy the argument that it's okay to do it as long as you do it within the borders of a country you're the majority of. I don't think it's okay to engage in ethno-nationalism, deportation, war, and political subversion within your own country as a racial majority just because you happen to be the racial majority there. I don't buy it. Jews doing it to white people, even if everything you said in the JQ conspiracy theory was correct, they would still be a fraction of that harmful agent that white people are, and they wouldn't even need the conspiracy theory to attain it to them. I think we've gotten about as far as we can in this discussion, and I think I've illustrated why there's basically no point in me talking to people like Enoch or Stryker. I might some point in the future, but all of you fundamentally run back to the same bullshit, like poetic purple prose language to describe conspiracy theories that can't be empirically determined. Okay, every single one of you.
Yeah, let me say one thing and I'll leave. That's because I think we've done pretty well so far. In regards to Mike Enoch and Eric Stryker, these two individuals, I can guarantee you can talk to them beforehand. They will engage in a very empirical standpoint when it comes to Jewish influence. They can give you statistics, they can give you names. They can do all these other things.
It wouldn't
Because
matter.
if you-
It's not. You can't use it as a proxy for other issues. If you have a problem with progressivism, argue against that. You're wrong. If you have an argument against capitalism, argue against that. You're right. You pick apart all of the bits of it that you can attribute to Jews because you need an intellectual scapegoat that you can use as like a puppet being controlled by the puppeteer that's scared of the puppet themselves, so that you can advocate for all the destructive shit you guys want to do. That's the game. It's been done before. It's boring. You haven't come up with a new fucking game in 80 years!
But the same thing you guys talk about institutional racism or institutional white supremacy. Like
we don't target the white people. We target the institutions and the bigotry that lays at its core. But your goal isn't to address your goal isn't to address Zionism to make it better. Your goal is to fucking eradicate Jewish people or deport them. Don't lie to me. Don't argue that leftists target white hegemony in the same way that you target Jews.
You identify the issue line of saying this is white supremacy.
Yes, with very real empirical consequences that can be argued against without demonizing white people, which we do.
That's fine. Understand that perspective, but I'm saying you still can recognize the racial aspect towards it. So I can still recognize the racial aspects of the Jewish influence or the Jewish behavior
conspiracy
within America
theory,
and around
yes.
the world. Okay, well, it's interesting you say that. And again, I've showed you every single Jewish organization being pro-Zionist,
That's not a conspiracy theory. That's a fact. The conspiracy theory is that Jewish people have maintained a shadow control over this government and are doing so deliberately to hurt white people by imposing degeneracy and internationalism and open borders on white people. That's a conspiracy theory that you cannot prove. You cannot find me the fucking cabal. You can't find me the document, the member sheets, the fucking community organizations of Jewish people who come together and whisper about how they're going to suggest to their cousin to put a new black person in the movie to promote miscegenation with the white people so the white people can be bred out and then they can conquer America. You can't do it. These are the same fucking arguments you guys have been using since the 1930s, and they're fucking boring. You don't realize that they've been disproven 1,000 times. You don't realize that they're horrendously irrational, and you don't care, because as long as there are new dipshits to listen to you, new dumbfuck 14-year-old ex-libertarians to stumble across your YouTube videos and hear the same propaganda, it won't matter. You can continue to spread the same bullshit. It will never change. Leftist materialism has advanced eons in the past 80 years. You're still stuck in a rock, and we will bury you underneath it when we're done with this little uprising you've been having over the past few decades.
Can I quickly ask you what the World Jewish Organization is, World Jewish Congress is?
Do you think it is a shadowy cabal of Jews who control every government in the world?
I think the World Jewish Congress is Jews acting together on an international scale to forward Jewish interests.
And?
So...
Yeah, and?
Entire point.
Yeah, no. The existence of a World Jewish Congress that was founded in response to their persecution is not exactly the same as saying they control a one world government, my dude. If you don't realize that, do you realize you just presented that to me as though it was a gotcha? Like, did you know there's an organization called World Jewish Congress? I guess everything we said was true. I know about the fucking World Jewish Congress. There's a big difference between acknowledging its existence and believing that it fucking controls the government and that they're deliberately trying to destroy white people by promoting miscegenation and trans rights or whatever. I can't believe you would think that's a fucking gotcha. Do you think my brain is as smooth as the people who post those fucking poll threads? Do you really think I'm so emotionally fucking biased that I would have my entire worldview rocked by the recognition of an entity that has a name that sounds spooky if you already buy into the conspiracy theory? All right, we did it. You're right, actually. The World Jewish Congress has a 4.5-star rating on Facebook. That sounds to me, that's about the rating.
I guess these Jewish organizations don't engage in any political behavior whatsoever.
They do, like every other group of people on the planet. Doesn't mean they control the entire world,
there we
buddy.
go. Entire world. When did I ever say that?
Buddy, I think we've had an excellent time talking. Hey, wait, listen, before you go, can I get a trans rights from you?
Death to all degenerates, glory to the race.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right, they're banned. All right, that was about what I expected. So that was pretty fucking pathetic. Hey, to all of the Nazis that are in chat right now, I ask you, why is it that that guy sounded so confident, but literally every single talking point he had to stumble backwards 15 steps before setting on a different talking point? Why is it that in face of the overwhelming evidence of Jewish control of America, he can't provide anything? He's like, Did you know the World Jewish Congress exists? Here are their Facebook posts. Wait. 5 hours ago, they raised more than $1 million for the victims of the Christchurch mosque shootings. Damn, dude. What power. Here's a video on the Jews of Kenya. Wow. Incredible. Oh, wow. Wait, hold on. Wait. Fuck, I should have got this back on. They posted a link on Facebook. It has 9 comments on it. Do you really think they would be able to get that many comments on a Facebook post without the support of the international capitalist cabal? All right, that was pretty fun. Fuck me. Every time with these people, it's the same shit. They're dead up here. All right. How's